Chapter 35:17. Song Jifan took a deep breath and showed an excited expression. There was only one spirit tiger elixir in the Changshan sect, and it was extremely precious. He was able to have such a deep cultivation at such a young age because of this spirit tiger elixir. With the help of this elixir, he could immerse himself in the spiritual ocean and cultivate very quickly, even faster than in the 100,000 hills. When others were in the spiritual ocean, they would feel like they were in a huge wave and could not hold on for more than a few breaths. However, because of the golden crown on his head, he could ignore the pressure and the monstrous aura and could calmly cultivate in it. This golden crown was the real treasure. It was a divine item that was passed down by the bishop of the Changshan sect. As soon as the spirit tiger elixir appeared, he calmed down and immediately stepped forward into the 100,000 hills. The existence of the spirit tiger elixir was no different from a spirit tiger. Wherever it passed, the spirit beasts seemed to have disappeared. The spirit beast's intuition was sharper and stronger than humans. They sensed the aura of the spirit tiger elixir from afar and avoided Song Jifan. Song Jifan found that even with the spirit tiger elixir, he could not find the spirit beasts. The spirit beasts that were not afraid of the spirit tiger elixir were not inferior to the second rank or even the first rank. He did not have the guts to provoke such spirit beasts. He only wanted to find a few spirit beasts below the second rank to devour. The spirit beasts were far stronger than humans. After devouring them, he would definitely surpass Chu Li and beat him up. As soon as he thought about beating Chu Li into a sorry state, he felt energized and continued to stride forward. After walking for 100 miles, he frowned. Everywhere he passed was quiet, and there were only some strange flowers and plants. However, he wasn't interested in them. He didn't lack spirit pills or medicines. He only lacked spirit beasts. He stopped and thought for a while. He decided to keep the spirit tiger elixir and devour a few spirit beasts with his cultivation. When the first-rank spirit beast sensed that he was an enlightened master, he would take out the spirit tiger elixir to fool them. Thinking of this, he took out a jade box and put the spirit tiger elixir inside. The enlightened master field spread out. Woo! An angry roar resounded in the sky. He shivered inexplicably, and his entire body tensed up. Every single hair on his body stood on end, and a chill ran down his spine from the top of his head to his entire body. He couldn't help but have a strong urge to turn around and run. However, when he touched the warm jade box in his bosom, he regained his composure. Then he recalled how he had beaten Chu Li up so badly that he peed in his pants. Once again, he perked up and continued to stride into the mountains. He wanted to devour one or two small beasts before those high-grade spirit beasts arrived. Woo! A heaven-shaking, earth-shattering roar suddenly appeared in front of him. Song Jifan's expression changed slightly as 10 spirit tigers, 10 Shilants, and 10 vermilion birds appeared above his head. They stepped on the void and stood beneath the clouds, completely blocking the sunlight above him and forming a shadow that enveloped him. The spirit beasts looked down at him from thousands of meters away. Their gazes were calm, as if they were looking at an ant. Song Jifan hurriedly took out the jade box from his bosom and opened it. He took out the spirit tiger pill, and suddenly a sea of spiritual energy surged. The spirit tiger's aura filled the air and completely covered his aura. He raised his head and looked at the spirit beasts. The spirit beasts didn't look very tall. Although they were standing on the clouds, he was not afraid. As long as he had the spirit tiger pill, he could hide from the spirit beasts. Spirit beasts could not be distinguished by their appearance, but by their spirit beast pills. Some spirit beasts had the ability to change their appearance, but their spirit beast pills couldn't. He quietly sized up the spirit beasts. As time passed, they didn't attack, which made him calmer and more confident. He sighed in his heart. It seemed that his method really wouldn't work. These spirit beasts were too sensitive to the aura of an enlightened master. Moreover, the speed of first-rank spirit beasts and supreme-rank spirit beasts was too shocking. It was impossible for him to capture and devour spirit beasts in a short period of time. Could it be that his trip was going to be in vain? When he thought of this, he was extremely unwilling. In the end, he scoffed and stared at the spirit beasts. After they left, he decided to continue hiding the spirit tiger pill. Moreover, he went as fast as he could into the 100,000 hills. Woo! An angry roar sounded again. Then, 10 spiritual energy bullets crossed 1,000 meters and appeared in front of him in an instant. Bang! Song Jifan couldn't dodge in time and could only face it with all his might. He was directly sent flying 100 meters away. He spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. He gripped the spirit tiger pill tightly, afraid that he would lose it. Once he let go, he would definitely die. He desperately thought in the air. What was going on? Why did they attack him? Could it be that they were enemies of the spirit tiger? However, there was a spirit tiger among those spirit beasts. As fellow spirit beasts, they should be helping each other. Or did they recognize him and think that he was a fake? He then shook his head. No matter how smart the spirit beasts were, they couldn't change their basic habits. As long as he had the spirit tiger pill, they would think that he was a spirit tiger. Could it be that they were testing him? When he thought of this, he nodded with certainty. It should be a test. Otherwise, these spirit beasts would attack him together. As soon as he thought of this, dense spiritual energy suddenly appeared around him. Some were like a ball of flame, some were like a pool of water, and some were faintly roaring in the shape of tiger. All of them had an aura that could shake one's heart. If it wasn't for the golden crown on his head, he wouldn't have been able to withstand the pressure of these auras and would have fainted immediately. Heaven gods couldn't even withstand a single blow from these auras and were instantly defeated. However, he had the golden crown to suppress them and was not forced by the auras. He only had to face the spiritual energy attacks of these spirit beasts. Even so, he didn't dare to take them head-on. He activated the lightning manipulation step and turned into a stream of light, wanting to escape. However, the speed of these spiritual energy was even faster. Before he could escape, he was instantly caught by a stream of water. His body instantly froze. A layer of white frost covered his body, and he turned into an ice sculpture. Then a few auras attacked him. Bang! His left arm exploded and turned into dust. He had already disappeared on the spot and appeared 10 meters away in the next moment. His face was as pale as ice, and his eyes were filled with shock. He didn't expect these spiritual energy to seal the space. His blood escape art actually failed, losing his arm in exchange for only 10 meters, and these 10 meters could only delay him for a blink of an eye. In the next moment, these spiritual energy shrouded him again. His right arm was about to put the spirit tiger pill into his pocket, but it was too late. His right arm exploded with a bang. Before the spirit tiger pill landed on the ground, he had already appeared 10 meters away. His body quickly shriveled and became shorter and skinnier like a mummy. Before those auras could reach him, he suddenly shouted, and the golden crown on his head emitted a dazzling golden light. When the golden light disappeared and the surroundings became dark again, he had already disappeared. He had completely left the 100,000 mountains and escaped the joint attack of the spirit beasts. The spirit beasts stood on the clouds and didn't come down. They only looked in the direction where he disappeared. The spirit tiger pill that fell on the ground floated up and slowly landed in front of a spirit tiger that was as large as a giant elephant. The spirit tiger stepped on the void, and its fur fluttered as if there was a strong wind following it. Chapter 35:18. Bang! Song Jifan fell heavily in a forest. Because it was adjacent to the 100,000 mountains, the spiritual energy was rich, and the apricot forest was overgrown with weeds. The sound he made when he fell in the thick grass was dull, but the thick and soft grass protected him. He lay motionless on the ground as if he were dead. His withered body had no arms, and his green robe was swaying on his body like a child wearing an adult's clothes. It was indescribably awkward. After a long time, he raised his wrinkled face and roared to the sky. A dash! He wanted to hit the ground, but he had no arms, so he could only kick the grass. The grass was messy, and the green juice stained his white boots. Ah! He howled furiously like a wounded wolf, and it was tragic and desolate. He came with enthusiasm and hope, but he fled miserably. He was forced to give up his arms, lose hundreds of years of life, and even his most precious golden crown was damaged. It was really a terrible defeat. He shook his hair gently, and the golden crown fell to the ground. Looking at the golden crown that had lost its luster, as if it had lost its golden essence and become ordinary iron, he felt as if his heart was being twisted. Then he saw that a gem embedded in the golden crown had shattered, and his eyes became bloodshot. He was in so much pain that he wanted to die. A dash! He roared to the sky, spat out a cloud of blood, and fell to the ground softly. At this moment, he had the idea of committing suicide. But once he committed suicide, he would be too ashamed to see his ancestors when he went to the human realm beyond heaven. So he couldn't die yet. He lay on the ground motionlessly. After a long time, a deer ran over lightly. Seeing him lying on the ground, it immediately came over curiously. Its clear eyes were bright, pure, and innocent, and it didn't seem to be afraid of people at all. Song Jifan suddenly opened his blood-red eyes and stared at the deer. The deer was sensitive. As soon as it felt his murderous aura, it hurriedly ran at a fast speed. But no matter how fast it was not as fast as Song Jifan. Although he was withered like a dying man, Song Jifan's injuries were all transferred by his body, so he wasn't as weak as he had imagined. His movement technique was still surprisingly fast. With one step, he instantly caught up with the deer and secretly sighed that there was always a way out. He was in extreme despair, lamenting that his life was no better than death. Unexpectedly, a deer with such spiritual energy was sent to him. The heavens really did not abandon him. After devouring it, his arms would be able to regrow and return to their original state. It was just like when Chu Li had chopped off one of his arms and exploded the other to escape. The newly regrown arm was not weak at all. At that time, he had devoured 4 grandmasters, but now he only needed a fawn because this fawn was full of spiritual energy and was on the verge of becoming a spirit beast. He was just a step away from becoming a spirit beast. The flesh and blood of spirit beasts were a great supplement, especially to him. One spirit beast was equivalent to 10 or even 20 grandmasters. This was the unique advantage of spirit beasts. The deer cried out in panic as it fell into Song Jifan's hands. The smile on Song Jifan's withered face grew wider and wider, and his eyes shone with excitement. Ing-ing! Suddenly, the cry of a deer could be heard nearby. A green deer turned into a green light and shot towards Song Jifan. It swung its head gracefully in the air and hit Song Jifan with its antlers. Song Jifan was thrown out like a broken cloth bag and crashed heavily into an apricot tree. The golden apricots fell to the ground. Song Jifan's withered face was twisted in pain. Not only was the impact of the antlers extremely painful, but there were also 2 strange forces that drilled into his body. It was like a knife cutting his body. He was in so much pain that he wished he could just kill himself. Ing-ing! The fawn cried out at the green deer. The green deer used its long antlers to touch the fawn and turned to look at Song Jifan. It then turned into a green light and shot towards Song Jifan. Song Jifan was once again thrown out like a broken cloth bag and crashed lightly into another apricot tree. Gotcha! The apricot tree snapped in the middle. After Song Jifan landed on the ground, he was no longer breathing. He was no longer moving. Ing-ing! The fawn happily jumped a few times and happily left with the green deer. After 2 hours, Song Jifan slowly regained consciousness. The wrinkles on his face were even deeper and denser. His entire aura was weak, as if he could be blown away by a gust of wind and could die at any moment. Song Jifan sighed and shook his body. He wanted to take out the only life-saving elixir from his clothes and swallow it. This elixir was a life-saving elixir. It was the only one that could save his life at the most critical moment. At this time, he could only swallow it. Otherwise, he might not be able to last until he used the art of eternal youth. However, after shaking for a long time, he still didn't see the jade bottle fall out of his clothes. So, he shook his green robe lightly, revealing only his snow-white undershirt. Looking at the empty green robe on the ground, His face was so gloomy that it could drip water. Because his body had shrunk, his clothes were now empty. Originally, he had been able to hold the medicine bottle, but now he couldn't. He had never used the unaging live forever technique in such an intense way and was inexperienced. As a result, he dropped the only life-saving spirit medicine he had. He roared at the sky. He got up and kicked the ground desperately. One by one, the apricot trees were broken by him and fell to the ground. After kicking for a while, he slowly stopped. His face was red and he was panting. After venting his anger, he calmed down. The art of eternal youth could devour blood essence and inner energy, but could also devour spiritual energy. The spiritual energy here was much richer than anywhere else. Cultivating here was 10 times faster than anywhere else. With his injuries, as long as he cultivated properly, he would be able to recover a bit of strength in a few days. When that time came, he could go and deal with the grandmasters and devour them to recover his arms. No matter how miserable he was still an enlightened master. However, he could forget about spirit beasts. He was traumatized by spirit beasts and didn't want to see them again. He didn't want to devour them either. He couldn't afford to provoke them. Grandmasters were better. Thinking about this, he leaped onto the treetops and found a mountain peak. Then he sat on the mountain peak and looked down at the land. Looking into the distance broadened his mind. However, when he looked at the mountains in the east, he saw the towering peaks. They were where the 100,000 hills were located. He couldn't help but feel suffocated and his face turned gloomy. He scoffed coldly, but he couldn't think of revenge. He was too weak. Now that the golden crown was damaged, he didn't dare to face the spirit beasts in the 100,000 hills. He was already an enlightened master, but he was no different from a child in front of them. He would never be able to surpass them. He let out a long sigh and closed his eyes. He began to circulate the art of eternal youth. Chuli suddenly appeared and silently sat on another mountain peak. Under the observation of the omniscient mirror, Song Jifan's blood essence and inner energy flow were as clear as palm lines. The heart technique of the art of eternal youth was extremely complicated. Song Jifan directly circulated the 9th level. It was so complicated that it was dazzling. If he didn't do it himself, even if he drew the cultivation diagram, it would be difficult for others to see it clearly. This was because the route was repeated many times in one meridian. Moreover, the speed of circulation in each meridian was different. Movement and stillness alternated. This kind of fire control was a great test of one's comprehension. Chuli felt that the speed of circulation was different for each person. He needed to combine it with his own body to change it. Chapter 35:19. Although the art of eternal youth was evil and overbearing, it was also exquisite. Chuli wanted to learn it not only for his own cultivation, but also for other reasons. One was the heaven-killing sword. The heart technique of the heaven-killing scripture was likely related to the art of eternal youth. Without the art of eternal youth, it would be difficult to control the heaven-killing scripture. Secondly, it was his ambition and plan. He sat on the peak and hid himself. He used the omniscient mirror to observe the operation of the art of eternal youth and tried to use it himself. He suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. It was not that easy. Many of the meridians in the 9th level of the unaging live forever technique were blocked. Furthermore, the meridians were extremely weak and could be fatal. If it weren't for his invincible Vajra body, he would have already collapsed to the ground and perhaps even experienced cultivation deviation. He frowned. It seemed that he had to start from the first level and progress step by step. The first few levels trained these meridians and even opened them slowly with special techniques. Without the first few levels, even if he had the invincible Vajra body, he would not be able to do anything if he rashly cultivated the later levels. He shook his head and sighed. He gave up on cultivating. The life and death scripture could not help him. Even if he were to use the life and death scripture to heal himself, he would still be in his original state. His meridians wouldn't be able to open up, and he would continue to be injured. The cycle wouldn't change, and he wouldn't be able to cultivate the ninth level of the ageless live forever technique. He pondered for a moment and was eager to do something. He had an urge to appear in front of Song Ji-fan and force him to tell him the heart technique of the art of eternal youth. He could force him from his second level to the eighth level and then cultivate it himself. It would be easier. As soon as he thought of it, he suddenly appeared and coughed lightly. Song Ji-fan was shocked. The art of eternal youth sped up. He slowly opened his eyes, and his expression changed. "It's you?" Chuli smiled. "It's me. Long time no see. Why is Leader Song so miserable?" "Chuli, how did you find me?" Song Ji-fan frowned. As an enlightened master, his location could not be deduced. The god's field also restrained divine powers. How did Chuli find him? He had to figure this out, or he would not have peace in the future. Chuli shook his head. "Do you think the god's field can restrain all divine powers?" "Why not?" Song Ji-fan snorted. He circulated the unaging live forever technique with all his might to speed up his recovery. His heart was filled with despair. This despicable bastard had come at a deadly time, and he didn't even have the strength to fight back. Moreover, even if he had the strength to fight back, he might not be able to defeat him. Most importantly, the golden crown that could block Chu Li's strange attack was already damaged. Once the gemstone was cracked, there was no way it could be repaired. In front of Chu Li, there was no way it could fight back at all. He had already made up his mind. As long as Chu Li told him the reason, he would escape first. Chu Li said, "Cult leader Song is very knowledgeable. So you should have heard of the all-knowing scripture, right?" "All-knowing scripture?" Song Ji-fan frowned and nodded slowly. "You've cultivated the all-knowing scripture?" Chu Li nodded and smiled. "You have a hint of the fragrance that I sprinkled on you. You should know what happened next." "Despicable indeed." Song Ji-fan sneered. Chu Li chuckled. "As long as we can find cult leader Song, it doesn't matter if we're despicable or not. It's as if cult leader Song is so noble. We're the second brother, so let's not talk about the eldest. What do you want?" Song Ji-fan asked. Chu Li said, "It's simple. Hand over 2 things, and I'll let you go." "You let me go?" Song Ji-fan sneered with a look of disbelief. Chu Li nodded. "Actually, there are too many opportunities to kill you. You should understand." Song Ji-fan's expression changed slightly, and he became silent. He also felt that Chu Li could kill him, but he let him go. It was quite unbelievable. Chu Li said, "If you die, what if the heaven-murdering technique is lost?" "You want the heaven-murdering technique?" Song Ji-fan asked. Chu Li said slowly, "As a man who doesn't want to kill an enlightened master like killing a chicken, everyone has such a dream, right? How about it, cult leader Song? As long as you hand over the heaven-murdering technique, I'll let you go. You're not a threat to me, so I don't have to kill you. If I hand over the heaven-murdering technique, I'll lose my life. Do you think I'm stupid?" Song Ji-fan sneered. Chu Li said, "All right then, I'll settle for the next best thing. Hand over the ageless longevity technique." "Impossible." Song Ji-fan scoffed. Chu Li took 2 steps forward and got closer to him, bringing with it a stronger sense of oppression. As an enlightened master, Song Ji-fan actually felt oppressed in the enlightened god field, as if he was facing a powerful spirit beast. He knew that Chu Li was stronger than him, and he was too weak to fight back. With a thought, he was about to detonate his left leg to escape. Just as he was thinking, Chu Li swung his hands lightly. TSS, TSS. 2 electric lights flashed, and his left and right legs suddenly left his body. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. "Cult leader Song, I've used this move." "You?" Song Ji-fan clenched his teeth and glared at him. He had lost both his arms and legs, but he could still hold on with his inner energy. The roots of his legs that were cut off had already stopped bleeding. The ageless longevity technique had precise control over the body. Chu Li said, "What's the 8th level of the heart technique?" The omniscient mirror clearly saw in his Song Ji-fan's mind. The ageless longevity technique had already become Song Ji-fan's instinct. He did not need to think at all, and the 8th level of the heart technique naturally appeared in his mind. Chu Li scoffed. "What's the 7th level of the heart technique?" He did not wait for Song Ji-fan to think and immediately shouted, The sixth level. The fifth level. His words came one after another, like an avalanche. He did not give Song Jifan a chance to react, and could only subconsciously flash through his mind. This was enough for Chu Li to imprint. The second level? Chu Li was excited and shouted. Song Jifan looked at him as if he was an idiot. Are you crazy? Chu Li did not wait for him to speak. He only cared about himself and directly asked from the 8th level to the 2nd level. It was as if he was in an illusion and talking to himself, which made him feel strange. Chu Li scoffed. Cult leader Song, your golden crown is a treasure, right? What is it made of? You want to know? Song Jifan smiled faintly. He made up his mind and laughed. In your dreams, Chu Li frowned. You still have this attitude at this point. Are you asking for death? That's right, I want to die. Song Jifan laughed. Chu Li, I'm just unlucky. If not, you would be kneeling on the ground and begging for mercy. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. Do you really think you can get away with it in 100,000 hills? 100,000 hills. Song Jifan clenched his teeth. If it was in the past, he would not care about it. He felt that with the spirit tiger pill and the golden crown, he could freely enter and exit 100,000 hills and become an inexhaustible source of power for himself. Who would have thought that the world was difficult and wishful thinking did not work? These spirit beasts were so difficult to deal with that they could actually distinguish between the spirit tiger pill and the enlightened master. Chu Li said, Are you the only one who knows about the heaven slaughtering technique? Just give up. Song Jifan sneered. Do you really think you can do anything to me? Goodbye. Chapter 35:20. Chu Li looked at the spot where Song Jifan disappeared and shook his head. He took a deep breath and smiled. He sat where Song Jifan was sitting and started to circulate the art of longevity. He started from the 1st level, then the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, all the way to the 5th level in one go. While he was cultivating the art of longevity, a spirit tiger appeared above the ice lake in the 100,000 mountains. It was as huge as an elephant, and its eyes were filled with electricity. It stood in the air leisurely and looked at the trembling white dragon and spirit-devouring turtle. After looking down at the two beasts for a long time, the spirit tiger suddenly spat out 2 streams of white gas at the two beasts. The white dragon and spirit-devouring turtle wanted to dodge, but they didn't have time. After the white gas entered their bodies, the two beasts started to tremble like sieves. After a long time, they slowly stopped. A stench came from their bodies, spreading far and wide and not dispersing. The eyes of the two spirit beasts sparkled as they looked at the spirit tiger excitedly, revealing looks of gratitude. Both of them could feel that they had become much stronger. Roar! The spirit tiger suddenly let out a long roar. Instantly, it echoed in the sky. A moment later, another spirit tiger appeared in the air. This spirit tiger was much smaller than the original one. Its height was a head shorter and its length shorter as well. As it stepped on the void, it exuded an elegant and refined aura. It held 2 black fruits in its mouth. They were about the size of a fist and were irregularly round, as if they were deformed. They didn't look like anything good at all. The two spirit beasts sized up the 2 fruits curiously and looked at the female spiritual tiger curiously. The male spirit tiger let out a low growl. The female spirit tiger let go of the 2 fruits and suddenly turned into 2 beams of black light, shooting into the mouths of the white dragon and spirit-devouring turtle respectively. The 2 beasts were stunned, but before they could spit them out, the fruits had already turned into a burning hot aura and entered their stomachs. The white dragon and spirit-devouring turtle were in unbearable pain, as if they had fallen into a sea of fire. The white dragon wanted to roll on the ground, but was restrained by an invisible force. The spirit-devouring turtle tried to reduce its pain by ramming into the mountains beside it. However, the male spirit tiger stepped on its shell, and it couldn't move. The white dragon and the spirit-engulfing turtle couldn't even make a sound. They could only endure the pain and feel as if every day was a year. The white dragon's snow-white scales began to fall off one by one, revealing its naked body, which was trembling slightly. After a long while, a green scale slowly condensed and covered the lower part of his neck. It was exactly where the reverse scale was. Then more green scales slowly condensed and completely wrapped around his neck. In the end, it turned into an azure dragon. The spirit-devouring turtle's shell was slowly shrinking, and the strange patterns on its shell were slowly twisting and changing, becoming more and more complex and bizarre. As the shell shrank, the patterns became more and more concentrated to the point where it was impossible to see them clearly. In the end, the entire shell was dyed azure and no longer had its original pale yellow color. The tortoise shell shrunk faster and faster. In the end, the giant tortoise that was like a hill became a turtle the size of a wash basin. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary tortoise in the river. It did not feel like a spirit beast at all. It became ordinary and extremely confusing. As the tortoise shell shrank, the male spiritual tiger shrank as well, turning into an exquisite tiger. After a long while, it suddenly leaped into the air and returned to its original mammoth-like form. The wind and clouds surged along with it. The two spirit beasts slowly calmed down. Their bodies felt warm and comfortable as if they were immersed in spring water. It felt as if Chu Li was using the dragon taming technique. They could not help but squint their eyes, revealing an expression of enjoyment. Roar! The male spiritual tiger let out a low roar. The two spirit beasts quivered and hurriedly opened their eyes to feel their bodies. Instantly, they were inexplicably excited. They both felt that they had advanced by half a level. From the original 2 levels, they had advanced to 1.5 levels. If they advanced by half a level, they would be able to become rank 1 spirit beasts. It would be an earth-shattering change. Roar! Ong! The azure dragon and the spirit-devouring turtle cried out at the same time. Their voices echoed throughout the sky, expressing their gratitude. After a spirit beast advanced to rank 2, it was extremely difficult to advance to rank 1. It was even more difficult than becoming an enlightened master in the martial arts world. The 100,000 hills was too big, so rank 1 spirit beasts and rank 2 spirit beasts were not small. However, it did not mean that it was easy for them. Now that the 2 spirit beasts had advanced by half a level, it saved them thousands of years of hard cultivation. The white dragon became the azure dragon, and the spirit-devouring turtle became the spirit-devouring turtle. This was already a fundamental change. It was an extremely difficult change, so they were extremely grateful. The male spiritual tiger let out a low roar and explained to them that this was their reward for delivering the message. There was no need to thank them. With their message, the Spirit Tiger clan finally gained another member. Moreover, it also prevented the Spirit Tiger clan from becoming a laughingstock and being ridiculed by the spirit beasts of the 100,000 hills. The 2 spirit beasts still expressed their gratitude. The 2 spirit tigers stepped on the white clouds and slowly rose into the sky. Then, they suddenly disappeared. The azure dragon and the spirit-devouring turtle let out a low roar and dived into the ice pool. They fought again, and the waves of the ice pool surged into the sky. While the 2 spirit beasts were fighting, Chu Li suddenly appeared. The azure dragon suddenly soared into the sky. With a wriggle, it appeared under Chu Li and carried him into the sky. The clouds carried a man and a beast. They moved at lightning speed and appeared in Juan Valley in an instant. Chu Li could not help but laugh. He activated the dragon taming technique and felt a sense of familiarity. The white dragon had transformed into an azure dragon. Now, its speed was not inferior to the void diversion. What a blessing. In the future, he would also have the ability to escape unscathed. He could fly freely in the 100,000 hills. As long as he did not cause trouble, he would not have to worry about danger. Through the communication with the azure dragon, he found out about the spirit tiger's gratitude. He could not help but feel emotional. It seemed that he had taken the right step. Not only did he ruin Song Jifan's wishful thinking, but he also benefited from it. It was a pity that he did not get the spirit tiger pill. However, the spirit tiger pill was not very useful to him. He did not lack the spiritual energy ocean. He only needed to cultivate in the 100,000 hills. However, there was still a trace of regret. The spirit tiger pill must have other miraculous effects. It was just that he did not know about it. When he turned his head to look, the vitality-devouring tortoise had already appeared behind him. It was only the size of a wash basin and looked much smaller and cuter. Chuli smiled and patted the azure dragon, indicating that it was better to return to the 100,000 hills. They had just benefited and needed to consolidate their cultivation in the environment of the 100,000 hills to avoid falling. The azure dragon soared into the sky again like a flash of lightning. In the blink of an eye, it had already returned to the sky above the ice pool. Then it slowly descended. It was carried by the clouds, as if it was being carried by a sedan bearer. It was indescribably leisurely. Chu Li's gaze suddenly fell on a small azure sparrow. This azure sparrow was only the size of fist. Its slender body was small and exquisite. Its intelligent eyes were like glistening gems. There was no spiritual energy fluctuation on its body. It was like an ordinary bird, but Chu Li felt that something was wrong. There were no ordinary wild beasts in the 100,000 hills. They were all spirit beasts. No matter how small a bird was, it was still a spirit beast. This one was indeed a little too ordinary. Moreover, there was a wave of alarm in his heart. After the god-slaying sword was formed, his senses became sharper and he trusted his intuition more. Chapter 35:21. He was immediately alerted. There was something very wrong with this small and delicate bird. It was very dangerous. It exchanged glances with Chu Li and suddenly flew into the sky as if it was going far away. It moved as fast as lightning and reached a height of 100 meters in the blink of an eye. Then, with a loud bang, the bird suddenly grew more than 10 times its original size to the size of a spirit crane. Its entire body was warm and white with a hint of redness, as if it was carved out of red jade. It floated in the void, without moving, as if it had turned into a red jade statue. It floated in the air without flapping its wings and looked down at Chu Li with its clear eyes. A name suddenly flashed in Chu Li's mind. Vermilion bird. Chu Li could not care less about what it was going to do next. He appeared next to the azure dragon in a flash and placed his left hand on its back before disappearing with it. The next moment, he appeared next to the vitality-devouring tortoise and placed his right hand on its shell to disappear. The azure dragon and the vitality-devouring tortoise were already trembling and could not move, as if they were paralyzed from fear. This was the fundamental suppression of a superior spirit beast over an inferior spirit beast. It was an uncontrollable instinctive reaction, just like how humans would tense up when they saw a giant snake. In the void, the vermilion bird's eyes flickered with flames as if it was real. It stared coldly at Chu Li. Bang! Chu Li's vision turned black and his chest felt stuffy. He realized that he could not break through the void and almost fainted from the impact. When he regained consciousness, he realized that his surroundings had been occupied by the spirit sea. The vermilion bird's spirit sea had enveloped a human and 2 beasts. Chu Li felt as if he was immersed in magma. His body was bound by the magma and could not move. The scorching heat spread from his body to his soul. He could endure the physical pain, but the pain in his soul was unbearable. He almost screamed at the sky. The azure dragon and the vitality-devouring tortoise's bodies emitted a faint brilliance. The azure dragon emitted a green light, while the vitality-devouring tortoise emitted a black light. Both of them were 3 feet away from their bodies to protect themselves from the erosion of the spirit sea. They could faintly feel Chu Li's pain when they saw his distorted face. Therefore, they ignored their instinctive reactions and rushed toward the vermilion bird in the void. As soon as the green dragon energy-devouring tortoises flew into the air, their spiritual ocean suddenly surged like flowing lava, forming a huge turbulent force that pushed them backward. They could not help but step away from the vermilion bird and Chu Li. The brilliance on their bodies began to shrink until it was only a foot away from their bodies. Chu Li felt even more pained. When he saw that the 2 beasts could not get close to the vermilion bird, he wanted to get closer to them. As long as he could get close to the azure dragon or the vitality-devouring tortoise, their protective energy barriers would be able to protect him. Furthermore, the combination of the dragon-taming art and the two spirit beasts would allow them to unleash even greater power. Perhaps they would be able to stop the vermilion bird. However, the vermilion bird, floating in the air, seemed to have seen through his thoughts. The spiritual chi sea surged like a huge wave, and he couldn't help but retreat. The distance between him and the two spirit beasts was getting farther and farther, and his heart was in despair. The scorching heat became more and more intense, and the pain almost made him think that he had already turned into ashes. In his despair, an idea flashed through his mind. An enormous withering glory tree suddenly appeared in the void of his mind, towering into the endless void. When the withering glory tree appeared, he calmed his mind. Even though the burning pain in his soul was still there, he no longer panicked. The Supreme Vajra leaped onto one of the tree forks of the life and death scripture, and the 9th level of the indestructible titanium heart technique began to circulate. He had previously cultivated the 8th level in the thunderstorm, but he did not manage to cultivate the 9th level. Now that the 9th level of the indestructible titanium heart technique was activated, he cast aside the first 8 levels of the indestructible titanium heart technique. His body no longer had any power to resist, and it was empty, allowing the spiritual ocean to corrode it. His body felt like it was on fire. Chuli gritted his teeth and desperately activated the 9th level of the indestructible titanium. Every inch of his body seemed to be burning, turning into flames and dying. Under the activation of the life and death scripture, he was reborn, burned again, and died again. The cycle repeated. The 9th level of the heart technique circulated endlessly, once, twice, thrice. After circulating it 36 times in one go, his body suddenly tensed up, and every inch of his body seemed to have undergone a strange change. Every inch of his body seemed to be a small dantian that accumulated the inner energy of the Supreme Vajra scripture. It was pure and wonderful, and it formed an endless sea of inner energy that covered every part of his body. The life and death scripture desperately absorbed the spiritual energy from beyond the heavens. At first glance, it looked like a huge vermilion pillar that connected the top of Chu Li's head and the void. The vermilion bird looked up at the void as if it had seen this vermilion pillar. It let out a clear cry that resounded through the void. Then, an enormous force that could topple mountains and overturn seas came crashing down on them, as if a mountain had fallen on them. In an instant, their vision turned black, and they felt like they could not breathe. Mahavarokuna's immovable Buddha opened its eyes and formed a mudra with both hands. It slowly chanted the scripture, and the enormous force that was pressing down on them instantly disappeared. Chuli felt relaxed, and he calmly looked up at the vermilion bird. Chuli was not that concerned about Song Jifan's golden crown, because he had the Mahavarokuna's immovable Buddha's immovable Buddha. Even if he was sitting in the spiritual ocean, he would not be oppressed by its dignity, and he could face it calmly. He glanced at the azure dragon and the vitality-devouring tortoise in the distance, and his expression changed slightly. The azure dragon and the vitality-devouring tortoise were lying on the ground, motionless. The protective splendor was stuck tightly to their bodies, almost shrinking into them. If this went on, they would not be able to protect themselves if he exerted even a little more force. Chuli was anxious, and he struggled to move forward in the turbulent spiritual ocean. He wanted to get closer to the two spirit beasts and use the dragon taming technique to help them. Although his 9 layers indestructible body of Vajra could withstand the erosion of the spiritual chi sea, the power contained in the spiritual chi sea was so vast that he could hardly resist it. Every step he took was very strenuous, and he had to use all his strength. Step by step, the distance between him and the azure dragon and the vitality-devouring tortoise shortened from 20 meters to 10 meters, and then to 10 meters. Now, there were only 5 steps left. Before Chu Li could celebrate, the azure dragon and the vitality-devouring tortoise were suddenly pushed away and they were 20 meters away again. Chu Li looked up and glared at the vermilion bird. The vermilion bird's burning eyes were cold and merciless, as if it was looking at a dead man. It was confused that Chu Li could withstand its spiritual ocean and pressure, but it wanted to kill Chu Li even more, and its gaze became colder. Chu Li clenched his teeth and moved forward again, but when he was 5 steps away, the 2 spirit beasts were pushed away again, as if they were playing with him. Chu Li suppressed the urge to use the god-killing blade. Although he had suffered, he did not die, so his killing intent was not that strong. Moreover, he had concerns. If he killed the vermilion bird, which was a rank 1 spirit beast, he would definitely incur the wrath of the spirit beasts of 100,000 hills, and they would hunt him down. He did not know how much trouble it would cause. If they ran out of 100,000 hills to hunt him down, none of the people around him would survive. Looking at the vermilion bird's body, which was white with a hint of red, it was obvious that it had not reached supreme grade. A real vermilion bird was a supreme grade spirit beast, and its entire body would be red, but this one's body was only white with a hint of red. It was obvious that it had not reached that level, and was probably still rank 1. Seeing that Chu Li was being toyed with so much difficulty, the azure dragon and the vitality devouring tortoise cried out in fear. The azure dragon let out a long roar, and the vitality devouring tortoise raised its head and roared. Chu Li's expression changed, and he knew that this was bad. Chapter 35:22. When Song Jifan was escaping from Chu Li, he did not forget to roll up the golden crown in his sleeves in a panic. Thus, he did not lose the golden crown. If he lost the golden crown, it would be a great blow to his prestige as a bishop. The elders in the church were not convinced by him and were dissatisfied with his decision. He sat on the armchair in the empty basilica and took a deep breath. These stubborn old men were all greedy for comfort and were corrupted by ease. They no longer had the drive to advance and could not wait to hide in the floating mountain. They threw the glory of the Church of Longevity aside and slacked off to the point where their descendants would solve any problems. After he decided to walk out of the floating mountain and unify the martial arts world, he was opposed by most of them. Unfortunately, as a cult master, he had this kind of power. This golden crown was a symbol of power and was the representative of a cult master. Once it was lost, these old fellows would definitely seize the opportunity to cause trouble. When he thought of the spirit tiger pill, he took another deep breath and felt his heart wrench. That was the spirit tiger pill, and there was probably only one of it in the world. Even the spirit beast sect wouldn't have it anymore. Furthermore, the spirit beast sect had already disappeared. Bishop Elder Fong, who was dressed in a dark green gown, walked in gracefully and sat on the armchair opposite him. "Are you still sulking?" Her expression was lazy and her voice was low and hoarse. It was indescribably pleasing to the ear, and one could not help but want to obey her. "Sigh." Song Jifan shook his head and sighed. He smiled bitterly. "Elder, the loss this time is too heavy. It's too tragic. I've never suffered such a crushing defeat. I'm really depressed." Elder Fong smiled. "As long as the bishop is alive, it's more important than anything else. As for worldly possessions, as long as you can unify the martial arts world in the future, what treasure can't you find?" "It's different." Song Jifan shook his head. "There's only one spirit tiger pill, and it's your favorite. There's also the life-saving 3 elemental pill and the 9-headed ginseng that I consumed." Sigh. Using the blood escape art, he used the power of one of his eyeballs to teleport to the spirit herb peak of the floating mountain. Then, he used the ageless live forever technique to devour the most precious 9-headed ginseng. Finally, he recovered to his original state and even improved. Due to the fact that he had lost his limbs and his eyeballs, it was impossible for him to devour any grandmasters in his weakened state. Moreover, he did not know how many grandmasters he would have to devour, as it would definitely expose the secret of the art of eternal agility. In the end, he could only consume the most precious spirit ginseng on the floating mountain. This was a spirit ginseng that was more than 3,000 years old. It could bring the dead back to life. Even though his cultivation had doubled, he still didn't feel excited in the slightest. Exchanging a 9-headed spirit ginseng that was over 3,000 years old for double his cultivation was truly not worth it. It was simply a reckless waste of God's gifts and was unforgivable. He was still unable to forgive himself and brooded over it. Elder Fong said, "Cult Master is the first person to return from the 100,000 mountains. It's worth it to pay a price. At least young Cult Master knows the situation in the 100,000 mountains and gives up on the idea of taking risks. I will never enter the 100,000 mountains again." Song Ji-fan sighed. These spirit beasts are too scary. They are so powerful that it's beyond imagination. An enlightened master is nothing in front of them. Elder Fong chuckled. What if we lured Chu Li into the 100,000 mountains? Song Ji-fan was stunned and thought about it. Elder Fong said, "What does Chu Li want the most?" Heaven-murdering incantation, Song Ji-fan scoffed. He thought about the situation at that time. Being interrogated by Chu Li like that, he could only escape with one of his eyeballs exploding. It was a great humiliation. Chu Li would never be able to wash away this humiliation without 1,000 cuts. Elder Fong smiled. If we tell Chu Li that the heaven-murdering incantation is not in our hands and is in a cave on one of the peaks in the 100,000 mountains, do you think he will fall for it? Yes, Song Ji-fan thought about it and nodded slowly. Will he really fall for it? Elder Fong smiled. Greed blinds people's minds. Song Ji-fan said, "Firstly, he yearns for the heaven-murdering incantation. I know how it feels. Secondly, he is an arrogant guy. He is very confident in himself and thinks that he can go anywhere in the world. Even if the 100,000 mountains are dangerous, he can still take the risk and enter. Lastly, he doesn't know how dangerous the 100,000 mountains are. The danger level of the 100,000 mountains is beyond the limits of people's imagination. People can't imagine how powerful those superb and first-class spirit beasts are." Elder Fong smiled and said, "Then tell him. Let's see if he will fall for it." "We can give it a try," Song Ji-fan scoffed. Elder Fong said, "Leader, I want to meet this Chu Li." "Meet him for what?" Song Ji-fan frowned. "It's best not to meet him. This guy is very cunning and dangerous. I want to see how powerful he really is." Elder Fong said, "That's good. I can help you think of ideas on how to deal with him. It's difficult to defeat such a person with strength. We need to use our wits." Song Ji-fan shook his head slowly and sighed. "Forget it." Elder Fong was a little surprised. She did not expect the leader to be so afraid of this Chu Li. Although the leader suffered a setback, he did not collapse. However, from the looks of it now, the leader's fear of Chu Li was close to fear. What kind of person could go this far and cause a genius like the leader to suffer setbacks again and again? She became more and more curious and excited. The more powerful a person was, the more interesting it would be to kill him. "Leader, what is his most powerful martial art?" Elder Fong asked. Song Ji-fan said, "Elder, Chu Li cultivated a strange skill that can attack the soul. If I didn't have the colored glazed treasure shield and the divine soul protection talisman, I would have been tricked by him. I would have been killed or captured by him." Elder Fong's expression was solemn. "He's that powerful." Song Ji-fan sighed. "Otherwise, why wouldn't I be able to get away with it? I have something to protect my soul." Elder Fong said, "I'm not afraid of this move of his." Song Ji-fan frowned and looked at her. He slowly nodded. "If that's the case, then let's meet him. It's easy to meet him. Let's go." He and Elder Fong suddenly disappeared. The next moment, they appeared outside the main entrance of the public house. He raised his voice and shouted, "Chu Li, come out." A moment after he finished speaking, Chu Li's figure appeared outside the main entrance of the public house. He smiled and looked at him. "Leader Song, you have recovered to your original state. Congratulations. I admire you." Song Ji-fan heard the ridicule in his tone. He sneered. "Don't be too proud. Chu Li, I'm going to kill you today." Chu Li laughed out loud. "Do you really think you're invincible?" Song Ji-fan sneered. Now that his martial art had improved and he found a treasure to protect his soul in the secret vault, he was no longer afraid of Chu Li. Instead, He planned to use Chu Li's carelessness to kill him. This was a rare opportunity. Chu Li shook his head. This is... Elder Fong smiled. Chu Li, why do you look so familiar? Chu Li smiled. Oh. Chapter 35:23. Song Jifan looked at Elder Fong curiously. Elder Fong smiled. Leader, didn't you notice that Chu Li looks a little like Bailey Na? Chu Li laughed. Song Jifan was stunned. He hesitated and did not dare to deny it. However, Chu Li and Bailey Na were worlds apart. There was no resemblance at all. How could Elder Fong think that they looked similar? It was baffling. However, he was confident in Elder Fong's intelligence, so he felt that there must be a reason behind it. He did not deny it. Chu Li laughed. Bailey Na, the Bailey Na whose martial arts were crippled by the public house. I heard that he was a rare genius. Unfortunately, he was ill-fated and was born at the wrong time. He did not achieve much and was won over by you. He went against the public house. He must be tired of living. The public house is too overbearing. Song Jifan scoffed. Bailey Na is alive and well now. His martial arts that were crippled has recovered and is even stronger than before. Chu Li, if you see him, you will be shocked. Chu Li smiled but did not say anything. He looked at Elder Fong. Lady, are you saying that I am related to Bailey Na by blood? Elder Fong smiled and shook her head. I feel that both of you are very similar. It's as if you were the same person. That's strange. Could it be that both of you are the same person? Chu Li was surprised and then laughed out loud. Song Jifan frowned and pondered. There were martial arts that could change one's appearance. Although it was rare, it was not impossible. The heavenly demonic power was the most outstanding example. Although one could change one's appearance and temperament, it was difficult to change one's body. No matter how strong Chu Li was, he had personally tested Bailey Na's aging body. It could not be wrong. No matter how strong the heavenly demonic power was, it could not reach that level. Otherwise, the heavenly demonic power would be invincible and no one could defend against it. Elder Fong smiled. Nothing is impossible in this world. You have to dare to think. Chu Li, you are Bailey Na, right? After she said her guess, she was more certain and felt that her guess was correct. Bailey Na and Chu Li were the same person. Although the two of them looked different, their ages were very different, and their temperaments were completely different as well. One was calm and elegant, while the other was deep and experienced. However, the feeling that they gave off was a strange feeling. Somehow, they were similar, and she could tell that they were the same person. She believed in her own feelings. Chu Li laughed out loud. This lady sure knows how to joke. Bailey Na? I am Bailey Na? Ha! I think I'm right. Elder Fong said. Seeing how certain Elder Fong was, Song Jifan remained silent. Even though this judgment was absurd and unbelievable, he had to consider it when it came from Elder Fong's mouth. After a while, he decided to believe in Elder Fong's judgment and said in a low voice, Chu Li, you're really despicable and shameless. You disguised yourself as Bailey Na and sneaked into our church. Are you trying to find out about the heaven murdering technique? You must be dreaming. To tell you the truth, the heaven murdering art is not in the sect, but hidden in the 100,000 mountains. If you have the ability, go to the 100,000 mountains and find it yourself. Ha ha. 100,000 mountains? Chu Li was stunned. Then he shook his head and laughed. Do you think I'm stupid enough to fall for your trick and run to the 100,000 hills? Who doesn't know that the 100,000 hills is a forbidden place for humans? It's up to you whether you believe it or not. And I dare to tell you that the heaven-murdering technique is in the 100,000 mountains, Great Heaven Peak. Song Jifan scoffed. Great Heaven Peak. Chu Li frowned. Song Jifan laughed out loud. Don't you want the heaven-murdering technique? Then go and find it yourself. Let's see if you have the guts. Ha ha. Chu Li scoffed. I won't fall for this trick. Don't be too proud, Chief Song. Do you really think you can dominate the world with your current cultivation level? So what if it's doubled? It's just SOSO. The rest of the enlightened masters have their cultivation levels increased by 6 or 7 times by the Grandmaster. Your good days are over. So what? Song Jifan sneered. His heart sank slightly. It was not that he did not mind. The increase of 6 or 7 times was not something that could be overcome. If he encountered these enlightened masters now, he might not be a match for them. If he had the heaven-murdering sword, then he would not be afraid. Thinking of this, his desire for the heaven-murdering sword grew. He scoffed. The one with the surname Chu, Baili Na, stop pretending. I'm sure you know the strength of my church. Can your public house stop it? Can Goddess Attraction Mountain stop it? Chu Li laughed. Baili Na, Baili Na. Do you really think I'm Baili Na? Come. He suddenly let out a shout. Yes, master. Xueling appeared in front of everyone in a white gown. She was spotless and flawless. Her body was shrouded in a cold aura. She was untainted by the dust of the world. Chu Li said, Bring Baili Na here. Yes, Xueling said. She turned around and entered the public house gracefully. She disappeared. Chu Li smiled. This Baili Na is indeed a talent. However, he still dares to come to our public house. He really thinks that we're just decorations. He has guts. Chu Li, what do you mean? Song Jifan's expression changed slightly. He had previously warned Baili Na not to think about taking revenge on Chu Li. Could it be that he did not listen to him and came back? Elder Fong frowned and looked at Chu Li. Chu Li was unusually calm. He did not panic or feel embarrassed when he was exposed. His state of mind was not affected at all. This was a little strange. After a while, Xueling appeared again. She was holding a flustered old man. His face was covered, and he was thrown to the ground by Xueling. He was motionless, as if he was dead. Who is this? Elder Fong frowned. She felt that the Baili Na in front of her was a little unfamiliar. Xueling, Chu Li said. Xueling said lightly, Baili Na, don't pretend to be dead. Otherwise, don't blame us for torturing you. Baili Na slowly raised his head and revealed his old face. His face was full of wrinkles. He looked dispirited and depressed. He looked at Song Jifan shamefully and closed fist saluted. Greetings, Bishop. You. Song Jifan was furious. What's wrong with you? Baili Na sighed. Bishop, I have no intention of taking revenge on the public house. I just want to find out the truth. You. Song Jifan shook his head and sighed. He could understand Baili Na's thoughts. He had suffered such a huge grievance and humiliation. If he did not come back to take a look, he would not be satisfied. As a result, he fell into Chu Li's hands. It was not surprising that he suffered losses in Chu Li's hands. If Baili Na could easily get close to the public house, it would be strange. Baili Na looked at Elder Fong and closed fist saluted. I've embarrassed myself. Elder Fong frowned and stared at him. Are you Baili Na? Baili Na smiled bitterly. I don't dare to look at myself like this. No. Elder Fong shook his head and scoffed. Where did you meet me for the first time? Baili Na was startled. He closed fist saluted. Elder Fong, what do you mean? Not at the Tower of Unusual Techniques? Elder Fong scoffed. What about the second time? The Heaven's Punishment Hall. The third time? Baili Na thought for a while. The Heaven's Punishment Hall. Chu Li laughed. Since he is not Baili Na, that's good. Xueling, bring him back. Yes, master. Xueling looked at Baili Na coldly. Chapter 35-24. Chu Li shook his head. Fortunately, he was on guard against Elder Fong. He had already presented his experience along the way to Baili Na's mind, so he was not afraid of being exposed. This was the effect of the dragon taming technique. Through the inner energy of the dragon taming technique, he could connect with the other person's mind and send his thoughts into the other person's mind. After he sent his previous experience and actions into Baili Na's mind, it was as if Baili Na had experienced it himself. Not to mention these general words, even his feelings and tone could not be seen through. Chu Li had read all the experiences in Baili Na's mind. So when he used the heavenly demonic power to transform into Baili Na, his tone and actions were no different from Baili Na's. It was not Baili Na imitating him. It was him imitating Baili Na. It was perfect and flawless. Wait, Song Jifan shouted. Try to not stop. She stretched out her hand to grab Baili Na. Oomph. Song Jifan scoffed. He flicked his sleeve and was about to hit Shui. Giving her a taste of his power would be a slap to Chu Li's face. Such a beautiful woman was actually his maid. It was a waste of God's gift. Chu Li flicked his sleeve and removed Song Jifan's inner energy. Bang! A silent force surged. Shui and Bailey Na's clothes felt like they were in a strong wind. Shui had already lifted Bailey Na up and was about to leave. Truly, Song Jifan panicked and scoffed. If you take Bailey Na away, don't blame me for attacking the people of the High Duke's public house. Chu Li smiled. All right, you attack the people of the High Duke's public house, and I will attack the people of the floating mountain. You. Song Jifan's expression changed. Chu Li smiled. What else do you think Bailey Na can hide? Bailey Na quickly shouted, Leader, I am innocent. Song Jifan's face darkened. He stared at Chu Li. Chu Li smiled. So, do you still want to save him now? He is a disciple of the faction of longevity. Once a disciple, always a disciple. Alive, he will be a disciple of the faction of longevity. Dead, he will be a ghost of the faction of longevity. I must save him, Song Jifan scoffed. Even if he is forced to tell me everything he knows. Ha! Chu Li clapped his hands and laughed. This is the magnanimity of a cult leader. All right, for the sake of her magnanimity, I'll give this Bailey Na to you. Consider it as you owing me a favor. Song Jifan snorted unhappily and did not refute. He also knew that if Chu Li stubbornly refused to hand over the person, there was nothing he could do. It was impossible to snatch the person back from Chu Li's hands. Other methods were completely useless, or else he could force Chu Li to hand over the heaven-killing sword. Xueling, Chu Li said. Yes, master. Xueling replied, and threw Bailey Na onto Song Jifan's body with great force. Song Jifan gently waved his hand, and Bailey Na floated to his side. Bailey Na revealed a grateful and ashamed expression. Cult Master, shut up. I'll deal with you when we get back. Song Jifan snorted. Yes. Bailey Na gave a fist salute and did not say anything else. Chu Li smiled and said, Cult Leader Song, you'll have to waste a spirit pill to restore your martial arts if you bring such a useless person back. Why bother? This old man doesn't have the ability to fight anymore, so it's better to give up. I have my own ideas. It's not up to you to decide, Song Jifan said coldly. Chu Li laughed. All right then, forgive me for not sending you off. I wonder if Cult Master Song has anything else to say. Do you want to fight again? That's all for today. I'll be back. Song Jifan snorted. He noticed that Chu Li's cultivation level had skyrocketed and was even scarier than before. However, he could not do anything to Chu Li, even if he teamed up with Elder Fong. Chu Li smiled. Then I'll wait for Cult Master Song to come again. Forgive me for not sending you off. Song Jifan snorted. He put his hand on Bailey Na's shoulder and glided away. Elder Fong looked at Chu Li deeply and turned to leave. She had been a little confused. She felt that Chu Li was more familiar, but she was not familiar with Bailey Na. She had to go back and ask Bailey Na if it was her illusion. The three of them went to Bailey Na's cottage. However, as soon as they reached the cottage, the scenery in front of them suddenly shook and changed rapidly. Oh no, it's a formation. Elder Fong snorted softly. As soon as she finished speaking, Song Jifan and Bailey Na's shadows disappeared in front of her. However, she was not in a hurry to use her secret skill to get out of the formation. She believed that the cult master would save her and she would not have to waste her life force. The cult master had the ageless longevity technique. His life force was very long, and he did not lack this little bit. However, she could not. As expected, after a while, she suddenly felt her arm tighten. The scenery in front of her quickly flashed and suddenly lit up. She appeared outside the forest with a calm Bailey Na standing beside her. She looked at Bailey Na. Aren't you afraid? Bailey Na shook his head. Since they let me go this time, they naturally won't make things difficult for me. You do understand Chu Li's way of doing things, Elder Fong scoffed. She suddenly had a strange feeling. It was as if Bailey Na in front of her had become familiar again. It was as familiar as Chu Li. She suddenly realized why she felt so familiar. It was because their smiles vaguely revealed a sense of freedom. However, Bailey Na did not smile like this before, so she felt it was strange. Now that he smiled, there was a sense of familiarity. Could it be that her intuition was because their smiles were similar? Bailey Na smiled. I have quite a lot of dealings with Chu Li. I was crippled by the House of High Dukes twice. I can be considered to understand their way of doing things. You are broad-minded. Elder Fong squinted her bright eyes and smiled lazily. It seems like you don't hate Chu Li at all. Bailey Na shook his head and sighed. To be honest, I don't hate him at all. If it was someone else, he would have killed me long ago. He has always been merciful. It is considered rare, and I am lucky. Haha, interesting. Elder Fong suddenly laughed. Her laughter was like a silver bell floating in the air. Song Jifan came out of the forest with a gloomy face. He shook his head and said, "It must be Chu Li's trick. He is warning me to stay away." This formation was placed near the thatched cottage. It was neither too far nor too close. It was obvious that Chu Li was up to no good. He did not want him to stay here anymore. He wanted to chase him away from Chongming Town. "Leader, let's take a break first," Elder Fong said. She could not wait to interrogate Bailey Na. She wanted to ask him in detail to see if there was any problem. "All right, let's go there first," Song Jifan nodded. The three of them arrived in front of Bailey Na's thatched cottage and sat in front of the stone table. Bailey Na heaved a sigh of relief. Song Jifan put his hand on Bailey Na's wrist. After a while, he shook his head. "This Chu Li is really ruthless, but it's just as well. You might as well cripple all your martial arts and only cultivate the eternal ageless technique." "Yes," Bailey Na nodded. Song Jifan stretched out his finger and gently tapped on his chest. Bailey Na trembled. He immediately revealed a happy expression. He closed fists, saluted, and bowed. "Thank you, leader. Tell me, what did you tell Chu Li?" Song Jifan scoffed. Elder Fong looked at him with a smile. Bailey Na smiled bitterly. "Leader, I really did not say anything." "Then how did he know about the floating mountain?" Song Jifan said coldly. "It doesn't matter even if you told him something. It's hard to keep your mouth shut in that situation. Besides, you don't know any secrets." Chapter 35-25. Seeing how he swore, Song Jifan and Elder Fong believed him. As a grandmaster, this kind of oath was very effective. Song Jifan scoffed. "Chu Li is indeed sinister and ruthless." Elder Fong nodded lightly. "This is a good move. It made us suspicious of Bai Li and not useful anymore. It seems like he still values Bai Li. Although Bai Li's martial arts is ordinary, his intelligence is not bad." Song Jifan scoffed coldly. "But it's useless in front of Chu Li. He gets caught by the House of High Dukes every now and then. He's a disgrace to me." Bai Li looked ashamed. "Leader, I underestimated the spies in Chongming Town. I didn't even think about getting close to the House of High Dukes. I just wanted to get some information in Chongming Town. I didn't expect them to recognize me." "Can't you change your appearance?" Song Jifan said impatiently. Bai Li sighed. "I've already disguised myself. I wore a beard and dyed my eyebrows. I even changed my hair. I thought nothing would go wrong. I didn't expect them to recognize me." Song Jifan said, "Then it's not your fault. Stay away from Chu Li in the future." "Yes, leader," Bai Li sighed in relief. Elder Fong smiled. "How long has it been since we last met? You don't have any of the elegance you once had." Bailey Na said, "Elder, I don't have any elegance. I've always been like this. Sigh, I shouldn't have acted on my own. I told Brother Liu that I was going to cultivate in isolation. I ended up dying in Chongming Town. I remember I asked you last time, why do you know the Jade script? Can you tell me again in detail?" Elder Fong asked. Bailey Na was startled. "Elder Fong is looking for that master? I've been investigating, but there's no news. Monks like the master are elusive. I've given up after all these years." "There aren't many monks in the world who know the Jade script," Elder Fong said. "Could it be from the Tempest Temple?" "I don't think so." Bailey Na shook his head. "I've gone to the Tempest Temple to investigate. I didn't know this master." "Do you still remember the first level of the Ageless Longevity Heart Technique?" Elder Fong asked. "Of course I remember," Bailey Na said with a laugh. "Jiaozhu taught me, plus the secret manuals from the Qigong Lu. My cultivation speed is indeed very fast." "Are you interested in my pet?" Elder Fong smiled and said, "Do you know what it is? Is it the spirit tiger? I can't even breathe from such an imposing manner." Bailey Na said hesitantly, "It looks like a tiger to me, but it's really too big, so I can't say for sure." Elder Fong frowned and looked at him, then at Song Jifan. Song Jifan said, Elder, there's no need to test him anymore. He should be fine. Elder Fong sighed. She had always felt that something was not quite right, but this Bailey Na was indeed flawless. Song Jifan's expression suddenly changed as he turned his head to look behind him. Two people suddenly appeared in the void behind him. One of them was a middle-aged man in a bright yellow robe, looking elegant and dignified. The other was a slender and graceful lady in a snow-white gown. Her face was covered with a white veil, revealing only a pair of bright eyes that looked like a pool of limpid autumn water. They were cold and arrogant, as if they were looking down on all living beings and did not care about the mortal world. Song Jifan was instantly intoxicated when he saw that pair of bright eyes. He then sighed bitterly. Cult Master Sun. Sun Mingwa looked at Song Jifan plainly and glanced at Bailey Na. Bailey Na gave her a look, then quickly glanced at Elder Fong. Tang Su said with a deep voice, Are you Cult Master Song Jifan? Yes, I am. You must be Tang Su. Song Jifan said coldly. What do you want? Tang Su said slowly, I heard that the Changshan cult wants to reign supreme in the world, and that you, Cult Master Song, want to kill all of our enlightened masters. So I'm here to see what you're capable of. Let's see how you dare to say such arrogant words. With just the two of you? Song Jifan scoffed. Tang Su said, Do you think we're no match for you, Cult Master Song? To be honest, you're no match for me. Song Jifan looked at Sun Mingwe and sighed. Why do you want to get involved in this mess, Cult Master Sun? I won't kill you. Sun Mingwe looked at him coldly and did not say a word. Elder Fong frowned at the two of them, then looked at Bailey Na. Bailey Na quickly said, Cult Master, shall we leave first? Go. Song Jifan waved his hand. Bailey Na quickly fist saluted and turned to leave. Elder Fong followed him and turned around lightly. Sun Mingwe said coldly, Young lady, please wait. Elder Fong's expression changed slightly, and she slowly turned around. Sun Mingwe said, I can see that you're good-looking, talented, and have such a high cultivation level. You're a martial arts genius. Why don't you join the Great Light Peak and stay away from an evil cult like the Changshan cult? Elder Fong's expression darkened. Tang Su chuckled. Cult Master Sun, that's not very kind of you. Sun Mingwe said, Your Majesty, there's no need to be so calculative. Our cult is currently lacking in talents, and we need such a genius. Your Majesty, the royal family has many talented disciples, and it's really enviable. We don't need such a person. Tang Su laughed. All right, since Cult Master Sun has spoken, I'll do it for you. Thank you, Your Majesty, Sun Mingwe said coldly. The two of them seemed harmonious on the surface, but on the inside, they were not. Previously, they were enemies, but now that they were fighting side by side against the enemy, it was inevitable that they would fight against each other. Song Jifan suddenly laughed coldly. Elder Fong is an elder of our cult. Since when did you have the right to tell her what to do? Cult Master Sun, I respect your purity, so I can't bear to speak ill of you. But please don't make me lose my patience. Sun Mingwe looked at him coldly, then glanced at Bailey Na who had entered the forest. She scoffed. What's the point of saying so much? Just do it. Since this young lady is an elder of the Changshan cult, I'm sure she doesn't think highly of her cult. That's right. Elder Fong gritted her teeth. Sun Mingwe suddenly flicked her sleeves. Elder Fong suddenly retreated and hid behind Song Jifan. Song Jifan waved his palm and went forward. Bam! Sun Mingwe's clothes fluttered, and Song Jifan took a step back. His expression changed slightly, and his gaze froze. He did not expect Sun Mingwe to have such a profound cultivation level. If he did not use his secret skill, he would not be able to defeat Sun Mingwe. As a man, he could not bear to be embarrassed like this. His handsome face turned red, and he took a deep breath before he struck with his palm again. Bam! Sun Mingwe's divine light fist struck out, and the forces collided, causing a deafening sound. Elder Fong felt his blood and qi tremble. He knew that the wisest thing to do now was to leave. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to escape unscathed, and the cult master might not have the time to care about him. Do it, Your Majesty, Sun Mingwe said. Tang Su nodded. He took a step forward, stood beside Sun Mingyue, and slowly unsheathed his sword. The sword radiance was bright, and as the long sword left the scabbard, the sword's splendor grew stronger and stronger. When it was finally unsheathed, the splendor was so dazzling that one could not look at it directly, as if a scorching sun had landed on the blade. Tang Su scoffed and took a step forward in the void to stab. Song Jifan let out a disdainful smile. In terms of exquisite swordsmanship, he had never been afraid of anyone except Chu Li. Ding! His sword radiance suddenly turned into a cold gleam and shot towards Tang Su, hitting the dazzling splendor. Tang Su staggered a step back and almost fell from the void. He did not expect Song Jifan to be so powerful, but he did not know that Song Jifan had already activated the sacrificial divine power and exploded with 10 times the strength, firmly suppressing him and Sun Mingyue. Chapter 35-26 Gaining Trust, Part 2. Sun Mingyue suddenly took off her veil, revealing her beautiful face. Her face was sparkling and translucent like white jade, exuding a warm glow. She looked at Bailey Na with a faint smile in her eyes. "What are you trying to do? Can Elder Fong die?" Bailey Na asked. "Suffer a little, but not to the extent of death." Sun Mingyue shook her head lightly. Bailey Na sighed. "If she can't be trusted this time, then I'll have to do something ruthless. This woman's intuition is too sharp. She saw through your identity? Would you be so careless and reveal a flaw?" Sun Mingyue smiled faintly. Bailey Na shook his head. "Logically, there should be no flaw, but her intuition is very strong. She can't see through it, but she can feel that something is wrong. This time I've tried my best. If I still can't hide it, then I'll have to take the last step." Sun Mingyue chuckled and said, "This young lady is really a powerful person." Chu Li said, "She's already more than 300 years old." Of course, this Bailey Na was Chu Li. When Song Jifan and Elder Fong fell into the formation, Chu Li instantly appeared and sent Bailey Na back. Then, he came back himself. It only took a moment for him to come and go. His timing was perfect and flawless. This was all thanks to the observation of the omniscient mirror. Sun Mingyue raised her eyebrows. "Eternal youth?" Chu Li nodded slowly. Sun Mingyue said, "Blessed by nature. Eternal youth could only keep one's appearance, but not one's temperament. As time passed, and people experienced many things, their mentality would change. This reflected on the outside and formed a unique temperament." Chu Li nodded. "Maybe it's because the floating mountain is isolated from the world, so there's nothing to distract him. He's been cultivating in isolation." "Only 5 enlightened masters joined forces this time?" "Yes, only 5 of them will take action." Sun Mingyue sighed. "Everyone's decision is to cripple him and imprison him so he can't do anything. As for killing him, they don't have the guts." Chu Li said, "It'll be difficult." Sun Mingyue shook her head. "Tang Su is fine, but Chun Jinji and Monk Lun Ming are doing it half-heartedly. They might not succeed. This Song Jifan has endless tricks up his sleeves. I don't know how many mystical martial arts and secret skills he has. I sneaked into his side to figure it out. Know yourself and know your enemy." Chu Li sighed. "It seems like I haven't figured it out yet. Then are you going to continue to disguise as Bailey Na?" Sun Mingyue asked. The two of them had a tacit understanding. Not to mention that he was disguised as Bailey Na. Even if he was disguised as a woman, as long as the two of them were close to each other, they would naturally sense each other and know each other's identity and position. This was the wonderful effect of the Supreme Vajra Supreme Scripture. Sun Mingyue knew what he was going to do with just a glance from Chu Li. Their cooperation was seamless, and they had a tacit understanding. Chu Li nodded. "I have other ideas now. I'll continue with my disguise." "Tell me about it," Sun Mingyue said. The two of them sat on a boulder at the peak of the mountain and chatted. A gentle breeze blew by and lifted her white veil. Her beautiful hair fluttered in the wind. She was truly otherworldly. It gave Chu Li the feeling that she was standing on top of the clouds. She was very close to him, but in reality, she was very far away. She was beyond his reach. Chu Li said, It's just an idea. Let's see if we can incite internal strife in the floating mountain. The longevity church is not peaceful now. Many people are against leaving the mountain. They don't want to dominate the martial arts world. They want to live a peaceful life. If that's the case, Song Jifan's prestige is not enough? Sun Mingwe asked. Chu Li slowly nodded. Yes, he's still young, and his cultivation level is not strong enough. He can't be compared to Song Wuji back then, so he can't completely convince the people. After all, those old people have lived for too long. Sun Mingwe asked, Can we really incite internal strife? Chu Li said, As long as Song Jifan's prestige is continuously attacked, even if he becomes an enlightened master, he won't be able to subdue the floating mountain. Elder Fong is his confidant. If we can sway her, we'll have a 60% chance of success. Elder Fong doesn't believe in you, Sun Mingwe frowned. In my opinion, it's better to get rid of her. Chu Li said, It's easy for Elder Fong to die, but she's the best weapon. We can't just give up on her. You're looking for trouble. Sun Mingwe smiled. Don't fall into her hands in the end. After all, she's lived for more than 300 years. Her wisdom and resourcefulness are definitely not inferior to yours or mine. Chu Li nodded. I'll be careful. You should be careful too. This time, it'll be very difficult to succeed. Don't get yourself into trouble. Also, be careful that Tang Su and Lung Wufeng will take the opportunity to deal with you. Sun Mingwe nodded. I'll leave now. Chu Li smiled. All right then, let's go our separate ways. Sun Mingwe hung up her white veil. Her eyes flickered as she suddenly punched him in the chest. Puffed. Chu Li flew up and crashed into 2 pine trees behind him. He hung on one of them motionlessly as if he had fainted. The divine light flame danced in his body as if it was going to burn him to ashes. Sun Mingwe did not appear again. Chu Li remained unconscious. From evening to morning, he remained unconscious for the entire night. Footsteps were heard as Elder Fong fluttered over. When she saw Chu Li hanging on the branch, she leaped up to catch him. She was full of vigor and did not seem to be injured. A gush of inner energy seeped into Chu Li's body and circulated rapidly to check on his injuries and physical condition. The ageless longevity technique's inner energy was being burned by a strange force. It was getting weaker and weaker until only a trace of it was left. Elder Fong estimated that if she had arrived a little later, his martial arts would have been crippled again. His blood essence would have been almost completely burned, and he would have been dead. She looked at Chu Li with a complicated expression. She was very familiar with this strange inner energy. It was the palm energy of Sun Mingwe from the Holy Church of Light. It seemed like she had merely slapped him away and left without caring about his life or death. Thinking about Sun Mingwe's situation, Elder Fong could understand. In Sun Mingwe's eyes, Bai Na's life or death was insignificant. She treated Bai Na as if he was nothing. If he had not rushed forward, she would not have bothered to attack. This was also the reason why he was able to survive. When she thought about this, she pursed her lips and shook her head. Bai Na was really lucky. If it was another enlightened master, he would have died no matter how lucky he was. However, he encountered the cold and aloof Sun Mingwe and luckily survived. She channeled to help Chu Li resist the divine light flame. After carrying him for an hour, they arrived at a ravine where they met Song Jifan, who looked as haggard as an old man. Song Jifan was sitting cross-legged on a rock by the spring to channel. When he heard footsteps, he opened his eyes and saw Chu Li in his hands. He's not dead. He barely survived. Elder Fong pursed her lips and smiled. Luckily, I met Sun Mingwe. Umph. Song Jifan scoffed angrily. His martial arts was crippled again? His martial arts was not crippled, but he was heavily injured, Elder Fong said. Elder Fong said, he performed the sacrificial divine power again. His vitality is greatly damaged. He needs to recuperate for a while. She put Chu Li down in front of Song Jifan. Song Jifan reached out and patted Chu Li's back. Puffed. Chu Li spat out a mouthful of black blood and slowly opened his eyes. Song Jifan scoffed. Sun Mingwe. He could feel that Sun Mingwe's palm energy was extremely pure. It was even better than the other enlightened masters. This was caused by the supreme titanium supreme scripture. Although Bali Na was unlucky, he was loyal. After all, the longevity church was the only thing he could hold on to, Song Jifan said. Chapter 35:27. Chu Li quickly said, "Leader, an innate master can't move an inch in the 100,000 hills, right? If you encounter a powerful spirit beast, I'm afraid. It's okay. Although I'm only at the innate mastery's boundary, I have the ageless longevity technique. Even if I encounter a powerful spirit beast, I can swallow it. Moreover, those spirit beasts are very arrogant. If they encounter an innate mastery like me, they won't even bother. Moreover, you have the sacrificial divine technique," Elder Fong said slowly. Song Jifan smiled. "Exactly. With 10 times the innate mastery's boundary and the ageless longevity technique, you are comparable to a grandmaster. As long as you don't provoke those rank 2 and rank 1 spirit beasts, you can easily protect yourself. But what if you encounter rank 2 or even rank 1 spirit beasts?" Chu Li asked. Song Jifan said, "They won't care about me. Anyway, I still feel that it's dangerous." Chu Li sighed. Song Jifan said, "How can there be a huge gain without any risk in this world?" Chu Li said, "But it's too dangerous. Why don't you train hard and defeat Chu Li with hard work?" Song Jifan scoffed. "I'm training hard and so is he. But his dragon taming technique is not very powerful. It's impossible to beat our ageless longevity technique," Chu Li quickly said. Song Jifan shook his head. "He can't be underestimated. Anyway, I made up my mind. There's no need to say more." Chu Li sighed helplessly. "Leader, please reconsider." "Shut up." Song Jifan's face darkened. He stared at him coldly. "Are you arrogant because of my favor? Do you think you can influence my decision?" "I don't dare," Chu Li quickly said. Elder Fong said, "Forget it, leader. He's just trying his best. He doesn't know how powerful you are." Song Jifan glared at Chu Li. "You will return to the floating mountain today. You are not allowed to leave the mountain without my permission." "Yes," Chu Li sighed helplessly. Elder Fong shook her head. She realized that ever since the leader left the mountain, his temper changed. He became more stubborn and could not be persuaded. Her advice was unpleasant to the ear, and the leader would not listen to it. It was better to say less to avoid alienating him. After the meal, Chu Li and Elder Fong returned to the floating mountain. The two of them used their qing gong to leave the valley. Bishop's move is too dangerous. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. It's not a wise move. It's a desperate move. Sect leader has no other choice. Elder Fong said, "Originally, I thought that it would be a piece of cake to obtain the heaven-slaughtering sword, and from then on, I would proudly roam the world without anyone being able to control it. The floating mountain would dominate the pugilistic world in one fell swoop, but I didn't expect that there would be so many setbacks at this step, and I couldn't succeed time and time again." Although he didn't return to the cult, he must have guessed that the opposing voices in the cult are getting louder and louder. If this continues, I'm afraid that in less than a year, all the elders will oppose coming out of the mountain and force the cult leader to take back his decision. "I see." Chu Li suddenly understood. Elder Fong said, "However, if Cult Master can settle down and return to the floating mountain to cultivate for another year, there will be fewer opponents in the cult. Those stubborn old people like to play it safe." Chu Li smiled and shook his head. The bishop is still holding back his anger against them. Sigh. Elder Fong shook her head. "I shouldn't have said these words to you." Chu Li said, "I won't tell anyone." 2 days later, Chu Li returned to the floating mountain and began to cultivate in isolation in his courtyard. The air on the floating mountain in the early morning was exceptionally fresh. Chu Li suddenly appeared in front of Dong Jinshin's basilica and saw that Dong Jinshin was slowly practicing his fist art in his courtyard. His movements were leisurely and at ease. After not seeing him for a while, Dong Jinshin had improved greatly. It was obvious that he had gained a lot from his isolated cultivation. "Senior brother." He took a step into Dong Jinshin's courtyard, gave a fist salute, and smiled. Are you still in isolation? Isolation can't stop you. Dong Jinshin scoffed. Take a seat. He withdrew his stance and went to the stone table in the courtyard to sit down. Chu Li sat opposite him and took out a snow-white silver ring the size of a bowl. He handed it to Dong Jinshin. Senior brother, do you recognize this? Dong Jinshin was stunned. He quickly snatched the silver ring and said in surprise, Could this be a spirit beast ring? Yes. Chu Li smiled. It seems that senior brother recognizes this item. You actually got your hands on a spirit beast ring. Dong Jinshin stared at the spirit beast ring excitedly. He gently caressed it as if he was caressing a beautiful woman's snow-white skin. He was extremely careful and gentle, afraid that he would damage it. Chu Li said, I got this item by chance. Senior brother, do you know what it's used for? This spirit beast ring is very useful. Dong Jinshin said excitedly. This is a unique artifact of the spirit beast sect. Chu Li smiled. Senior brother, please dispel my doubts. Dong Jinshin carefully caressed the spirit beast ring and sighed. This item can tame spirit beasts. It's a powerful treasure. Tame, Chu Li pondered. In other words, it can defeat spirit beasts while being weak? That's right. Dong Jinshin nodded. The reason why the spirit beast sect was so powerful back then was because of the spirit beast ring. Without the spirit beast ring, even the dragon taming technique would be useless. They couldn't control spirit beasts at all. The spirit beast sect wasn't like us now. If we want to tame a dragon, we have to start from a snake and cultivate it for hundreds of years. The spirit beast sect didn't cultivate spirit beasts themselves. Instead, they directly controlled spirit beasts and used the spirit beast ring to turn them into their mounts. Spirit beasts weren't companions or friends. They were just subordinates. Think about how prestigious it was. Chu Li smiled. Can you tame a rank 1 golden dragon as well? Of course. Dong Jinshin said slowly. Chu Li shook his head. It's hard to imagine. That's a rank 1 golden dragon. As long as you're an enlightened master, you can turn a golden dragon into a mount. Dong Jinshin revealed a hint of fanaticism. In the end, he sighed and shook his head. It's a pity that the spirit beast sect has been destroyed. It's really a decline after its prosperity. Chu Li said, Senior brother, do you know how to use this spirit beast ring? As far as I know, it needs to be sacrificially refined first. Dong Jinshin sighed. But it's useless for you. Master is fine. Unfortunately, he already has a golden dragon. He doesn't need it. Chu Li asked, why is it useless? Because only enlightened masters can sacrifice this. Dong Jinshin shook the spirit beast ring lightly. Chu Li frowned. Enlightened masters? Dong Jinshin said, only enlightened masters can control spirit beast rings. Grandmasters are useless. I want to try, Chu Li said. All right, Dong Jinshin said, I know how to sacrifice it. I'll find it for you now. This junior brother of his could do what others couldn't. He might be able to break through the limits of grandmasters and enlightened masters. Chu Li was overjoyed. He gave a fist salute. Dong Jinshin waved his hand and stood up. He returned to his basilica and found a thick ancient book on the bookshelf. He returned to Chu Li and handed it to him. This is the sacrifice method for the spirit beast ring. Try it yourself, but remember not to force yourself. Otherwise, you'll suffer from internal deviation. Chu Li took the ancient book and nodded with a smile. Senior brother, please protect me. All right, Dong Jinshin said. Chu Li immediately flipped open the ancient book as if he was just flipping through a book. He did not stop to read. After a short while, he finished flipping through the ancient book and closed his eyes to meditate. Chapter 35:28. After a long while, he revealed a bitter smile and said, It seems that it really is impossible. The sacrificial refinement of the spirit beast ring required the enlightened master's power to be infused into the spirit beast ring. A grandmaster's inner energy would not be able to enter the spirit beast ring at all. Furthermore, without the enlightened master's power, the spirit beast ring would not have much power. Even if the sacrificial refinement was completed, it would be a waste of one's essence, energy, and spirit. Looking at the records in this book, A grandmaster like him did not need to waste his energy. Don't you want to try? Dong Jianxin was eager to see if Chu Li could create a miracle this time. Chu Li thought about it and slowly said, "Let's give it a try then." Dong Jianxin chuckled and said, "Yes, let's try it first." He reluctantly handed over the spirit beast bracelet to Chu Li and looked at him eagerly. "It'll be amazing if we can successfully refine it. We'll be able to tame a spirit beast and greatly increase goddess attraction, mountain strength." A spirit beast was far more powerful than a heavenly deity. With a spirit beast staying on a mortal attraction mountain, there was no need to be afraid of heavenly deities or those heavenly deities joining hands to harm Immortal Attraction Mountain. Immortal Attraction Mountain was as stable as a boulder. Chu Li smiled. "I hope so." As he spoke, he closed his eyes and pressed his hands on the spirit beast bracelet, slowly injecting the inner force of the Supreme Diamond Supreme Sutra into the spirit beast bracelet. The scarlet pillar on top of his head was constantly pouring in, transforming into the Supreme Vajra Sutra's internal force. The spirit beast ring was like a bottomless pit, and after the Supreme Vajra Sutra's internal force entered, there was no reaction at all. He didn't feel anything at all, and everything was pitch black. Time passed slowly as the sun slowly moved from the east to the west. When it reached the middle of the sky, Chu Li still maintained his original posture as he continued to pour the Supreme Titanium Supreme Scripture's inner energy into his body. When the sun was setting, Chu Li was still desperately channeling his inner energy. Dong Jianxin raised his head to look at the setting sun. The basilica was dimly illuminated by the red light. His stomach rumbled, but he endured it and continued to stare at Chu Li. The dragon taming technique was pushed to the limit to resist the huge pressure. He was certain that Chu Li had not channeled the dragon taming technique into the spirit beast bracelet. Otherwise, he would not have felt such immense pressure. It was no different from the pressure his master gave him. It was vast and irresistible. The sun sets, the moon rises, then the moon sets, the sun rises again. Dong Jianxin was sweating profusely, as if he was about to collapse. Countless times, he felt that he had reached his limit and could not hold on any longer. However, every time he thought so, he would look at Chu Li's solemn and serious face. Chu Li was calm, as usual, and did not show any signs of impatience. Hence, he would grit his teeth and persevere. Unknowingly, he had already resisted for a day and a night. It was truly beyond his imagination. He originally thought that he would not be able to hold on until night fell and might even faint. He did not expect that he would last through the night. Buzz! The spirit beast bracelet suddenly trembled as if it was about to leave Chu Li's hands. Dong Jianxin immediately perked up and stared at the spirit beast bracelet. The spirit beast bracelet began to radiate a hazy white light, and it was as if it had been carved out of white jade. It was no longer as shiny as before, and there was a clear spring flowing within the jade bracelet. Chu Li remained motionless and sat there like a statue. He paid no attention to the strange behavior of the spirit beast bracelet and seemed to have entered a meditative state. The spirit beast bracelet continued to transform, turning from white jade to green jade. It was brimming with vitality, like the green leaves after the summer rain. Furthermore, the moisture was blowing over, and the entire hall seemed to have become cool and refreshing. Dong Jianxin perked up again. After the green jade light flowed for a while, the spirit beast bracelet changed again. It turned from green jade to red jade, and the redness gradually deepened. Finally, it turned into a deep purple. It exuded a dignified and inviolable aura. Dong Jianxin frowned as he pondered over the sacrificial method of the spirit beast bracelet. However, he did not record these changes. The ancient book was from the spirit beast sect, and it only mentioned that the spirit beast bracelet was a vitality C. Without an owner, the spirit beast bracelet's spiritual energy would dry up after 10 years. The new owner would replenish the dried-up Vitality C and activate the formation within it to form a new Vitality C that belonged to the owner of the Spirit Beast bracelet. This bracelet could expand or shrink. Once it was put on the neck of a spirit beast, it would devour the spirit beast's vitality and turn it into an ordinary wild beast. It was up to the owner of the spirit beast bracelet to stop the devouring force. If the spirit beast bracelet did not stop the devouring, the spirit beast would remain a wild beast and would not be able to absorb vitality into its body. It would be like a martial arts master without inner energy and would become a useless person. If it stopped, the spirit beast would return to being a spirit beast. What was more amazing was that not only could the spirit beast bracelet devour vitality, but it could also nourish vitality. When the spirit beast bracelet rotated positively, it would devour the spirit beast's vitality. When the spirit beast bracelet rotated in reverse, it would devour vitality from the outside world. Not only could the spirit beast bracelet accelerate its cultivation, but it could also quickly replenish its vitality during battle. It was extremely flexible, so the combat strength of the spirit beast wearing the spirit beast bracelet was extremely terrifying, far surpassing other spirit beasts of the same level. Chu Li's inner energy was extremely profound, and his supreme titanium supreme scripture was extremely pure. Ordinary enlightened masters it could not compare to him, but he still could not completely replenish the vitality sea after spending a whole day and night. This showed how much vitality it could store. After the purple color, the color began to change again, turning into a purplish gold color. Then, the yellow color gradually deepened, turning from purplish gold to golden yellow. The golden light shone as if the bracelet was cast from pure gold. Dong Jianxin was speechless. The golden light slowly faded, and the bracelet regained its lustrous white color. Moreover, the lustrous white color was gradually restrained, and finally, it turned into an ordinary white jade bracelet. It was completely different from the original silver bracelet. Its luster had faded, and it became simple and unadorned. Chu Li still held it with both hands and did not move. A blue brilliance began to circulate on the jade bracelet, circle after circle, followed by a purple brilliance, and then a red brilliance. In the end, a total of 7 colorful brilliants appeared, circulating endlessly on the jade bracelet, chasing after each other. The colorful brilliance flickered endlessly, reflecting Chu Li's face. Dong Jianxin watched with wide eyes, feeling that this was a critical moment. After a long while, all the brilliance suddenly converged and disappeared into the jade bracelet. Then, 7 round dots appeared on the inner wall of the jade bracelet, faintly discernible. If one did not look carefully, one would not be able to see it. Chu Li let out a long sigh of relief and slowly opened his eyes. Dong Jianxin hurriedly said, "Junior brother, is it done?" Chu Li slowly nodded and smiled. "It can be considered a lucky success, but I still don't know how powerful it is. Unfortunately, my snake has not become a spirit beast yet, so I can't test it." Dong Jianxin sighed. "Don't you have a spirit beast? Take it and try it." Chu Li smiled and nodded. "Then let's try it. Senior brother, do you want to join us?" "Of course," Dong Jianxin said. Chu Li pulled up his sleeve, and the two suddenly disappeared from the basilica. The next moment, they appeared in Jiyuan Valley. The originally calm pool suddenly surged, and in the surging waves, the azure dragon and the vitality-devouring tortoise were lifted up by the water, and then they leaped towards Chu Li. Dong Jianxin's body tensed up, and his clothes that were already dry became wet again. The 2 first-and-a-half-level spirit beasts in front of him formed a huge force that was as huge as a mountain, causing him to sweat profusely. Chu Li patted the 2 beasts, and the spirit beast bracelet suddenly came out of his bosom. It suddenly expanded and turned into a spiritual light, and then it wrapped around the azure dragon's neck. Then, a turbulent, devouring force spread, and the azure dragon's vitality was rapidly devoured. Chapter 35:29. The azure dragon turned to look at Chu Li with an aggrieved expression. Chu Li chuckled. The spirit beast bracelet suddenly turned into a stream of light, and shot toward the vitality-devouring tortoise. The vitality-devouring tortoise quickly retracted its head and shot out its shell in an attempt to escape into the pool. However, the stream of light caught up to it in midair and wrapped around its shell. It rapidly contracted and devoured the vitality, devouring tortoise's vitality like a whale. Before it could fall into the water, it fell weakly in midair and landed on the grass beside the pool. The vitality-devouring tortoise poked its head out and let out 2 cries to express its dissatisfaction. Chuli smiled and waved his hand. The spirit beast bracelet instantly turned into a stream of light and shot into his hand. "How is it?" Dong Jinshin asked. He could clearly feel the changes. Once the spirit beast bracelet was worn by the Azure Dragon, he felt as if a mountain was unrecognizable to him. However, he had to be careful since it's a rare treasure after all. Understood. Chuli Fist saluted and disappeared. The next moment, he appeared at the 100,000 Hills ice pool. The surroundings of the ice pool had changed drastically. Initially, there were towering mountains surrounding the ice pool like a bucket. Now, the surrounding mountains had disappeared and the bucket had turned into a basin. The originally clear water of the pool had become murky with some dead fish floating on it. Chuli frowned. Suddenly, he saw the vermilion bird standing on a rock. It still had the appearance of a delicate little bird. It looked at Chuli mockingly with its animated eyes, as if it was mocking him for daring to return. Before Chuli could do anything, it rose into the air and turned into a light red jade sculpture the size of a spirit crane. Suddenly, a turbulent sea of spiritual energy surrounded Chuli like magma. Chuli activated the indestructible body of titanium. A stream of light flashed in his hand, and the spirit beast bracelet flew toward the vermilion bird. The vermilion bird was not bothered by this stream of light. It hovered in the air without dodging and put the spirit beast bracelet around its neck. When the vitality left its body and entered the spirit beast bracelet, it realized that something was wrong and let out a soft cry. The sea of spiritual energy around Chuli seemed to have gone berserk as an immense spiritual energy pressed toward him. Chuli focused and released the god-slaying sword. Ding! A crimson feather fell from the vermilion bird's chest and suddenly ignited in the air. It turned into a ball of flame that shot toward Chuli. Chuli was shocked. He felt a deadly sense of danger. The hairs on his body stood on end. A chill ran through his body, urging him to run for his life. Chuli could not care less about the spirit beast bracelet and disappeared in a flash. He appeared at the peak of a mountain, still in a state of shock, thinking about that feather. That feather was far more dangerous to him than the vermilion bird. He could vaguely guess its origin. It should be the possession of a superior grade spirit beast, a true adult vermilion bird, not the little vermilion bird from before. It must have been bestowed by its parents or elders to protect its soul from being injured by the deity execution sword. This was going to be troublesome. If he really used the spirit beast ring to subdue the vermilion bird, he would have to bear the revenge of its elders. When he thought of this, his heart trembled and he suddenly disappeared. In the next moment, he appeared beside the ice pond and saw the vermilion bird standing proudly beside the pond with the spirit beast bracelet under her feet and looking askance at Chuli. Chuli frowned as he looked at the spirit beast bracelet. He could not sense it. It had been destroyed. Sure enough, a first-grade spirit beast was much stronger, and the spirit beast bracelet was unable to trap it. Chapter 35:30. The dragon taming technique flowed slowly into the spirit beast bracelet. Boom! There was a muffled sound that sounded like the roar of a giant dragon. Chuli's vision shook violently before it turned black. A strange, spiritual energy suddenly exploded, trying to scatter his soul. There was a roar in his ears, and his vision turned black. At the same time, a strange energy entered his body. Under the observation of the omniscient mirror, he saw a ball of flame. It was the same flame he had seen before. The flame was only the size of a lamp wick, and seemed to have ordinary power. However, he felt a chill as if he had met his natural enemy. His body trembled as he used the dragon taming technique to activate the supreme Vajra scripture and channeled all of his inner energy into the flame. All the Vajras and demons in the void of his mind moved. Numerous lotuses densely covered the void, allowing his injured spirit to recover quickly. He urged the supreme Vajra scripture's inner energy to suppress the flame. The flame grew stronger, as if the supreme Vajra scripture's inner energy had become its fuel. The flame seemed illusory, but real at the same time. It circulated quickly in his body, and he could smell the faint scent of burnt meat wherever it passed. It seemed like his body was really going to burn. However, if it was real, it was impossible for such a flame to burn in his body. What kind of flame would burn inside his body? Seeing that the supreme Vajra scripture's inner energy was useless, he retracted his inner energy and hid it in his dantian. He watched as the flame raged. Everywhere it passed, he felt excruciating pain. He activated the life and death scripture and channeled the coldest and most spiritual energy from Outland to extinguish the flame. The flame no longer absorbed the coldest and most spiritual energy, but was not affected. It continued to burn in his body. Thus, Chuli unleashed the inner energy of the great light scripture and used the divine light scripture flame to confront the flames. He wanted to assimilate them, but he was quickly assimilated by the flames. The divine light scripture flame was of great help to him, as the flames instantly became much more vigorous and powerful. Wherever the flames passed, a layer of his body would be destroyed. If this went on, Chuli would probably be forced into a state where he would have no fire left. As a grandmaster, it would be a joke if he were to die from burning. As the Mahavairocana's immobility scripture and other scriptures circulated, Chuli calmly pondered. In the end, he withdrew all of his inner energy and activated the indestructible body of the supreme titanium scripture to resist the destruction. Once the indestructible body of Vajra was activated, the initial feeling of weakness dissipated significantly. The indestructible body of Vajra was different from the sentient menace that he had learned in the past. The indestructible body of Vajra was not activated on its own. Only when the inner energy of the supreme Vajra scripture was activated would the indestructible body of Vajra be activated and its power would be revealed. This was not caused by the cultivation method, but because the level of the technique was not high enough, it could not be activated on its own. The indestructible body of titanium was activated to resist the flames, but it could only alleviate the severe deterioration and weakness from before. It could not stop the destruction. Chuli frowned and pondered. Was he really going to die here today? No matter how powerful the life and death scripture was, he would not be able to recover even if he was burnt to ashes. He suddenly gritted his teeth and released the 9-level heart technique of the indestructible body of titanium. He began to circulate the 10-level heart technique. It was very similar to his experience in the Thunderbolt. Perhaps he could use the indestructible body of titanium to escape this time. The 10th level of the mental cultivation method was even more complicated and unpredictable. Fortunately, although he was in unbearable pain, he was still calm and composed. It was as if his body did not belong to him. He concentrated on urging the 10th level of the mental cultivation method to slowly circulate. The more painful the situation was, the higher the degree of concentration and the higher the efficiency of cultivation. The flames continued to destroy every part of his body, but the 10th level of his heart technique did not recover. It continued to operate on its own, as if it did not care about Chuli's life or death. After going through a full cycle with much difficulty, his body became slightly weaker. After the second circulation, his body became weaker. His face was pale, and his breathing was weak. He could not help but smile bitterly. At this point, all his hopes were on the indestructible body of titanium. If the indestructible body of titanium failed to live up to his expectations, he might not be able to escape this time. However, he had a strange intuition that this chance of survival was on the indestructible body of titanium. Therefore, even though it was dangerous, he persevered. With every circulation, The flames damaged his body even more. Without the protection of the 9th level of the indestructible body of titanium, his body deteriorated rapidly. In the end, he sat on the ground motionless. His body was limp like mud, as if all his bones had been removed, and he had no strength left. As he channeled, he mocked Song Jifan in his heart. This Song Jifan's luck was not good enough. If he appeared here now, he would really be powerless and could only let him do whatever he wanted. However, it did not need Song Jifan. Even a normal master, or even an acquired master, could kill him now. He was at his weakest. A sense of confidence supported him. Even though his body was getting weaker and he was on the brink of death, he still persisted in channeling the 10th level of the indestructible body of titanium. He believed in his intuition that the 10th level of the indestructible body of titanium could save him. At the same time, he became more familiar with the flames. It seemed like it not only wanted to burn his body, but also his soul. Now it was only focused on his body. As long as his body was destroyed, it would continue to attack his soul until he was completely annihilated and disappeared from the world. He would not have the chance to enter the Grandmaster's boundary, reincarnation, and reincarnation. It was extremely vicious. Shao-Chi's figure flashed in his mind, and vaguely, Sun Mingwei. As soon as he had this thought, Sun Mingwei suddenly appeared in front of him. Her white clothes fluttered in the wind like a fairy that was about to fly away. Her cold eyes looked at Chu Li, and a flash of anxiety appeared in her eyes. She quickly reached out to grab his wrist. However, Chu Li suddenly had a burst of strength and dodged her. He said in a hoarse voice, "Don't move." Sun Mingwei was stunned. Chu Li's face was red as if he was drunk, and his body was burning hot like a volcano that was about to erupt. It was strange that his clothes were still intact, even under such high temperatures. "What's going on?" She stared at Chu Li's unusually bright eyes. "What should I do?" A smile appeared on Chu Li's face. "There's no need. I'll be done soon. Don't fool around," Sun Mingwei quickly said. She could clearly feel that Chu Li was getting weaker and weaker, and his life was about to end soon. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. "Have you forgotten my ability? I can turn the dead back to life." Sun Mingwei hesitated for a moment and did not reach out again. Chu Li did have the ability to turn the dead back to life. He could clearly come back to life after dying, but he did not let her touch it because it was a critical moment. However, Chu Li was worried that if Sun Mingwei touched it, the flames would enter her body. Sun Mingwei cultivated the Great Light Scripture, and her inner energy was like a flame. The Great Light Flame was the best supplement for the flames. Sun Mingwei could not let it go once she got close to it. Even if Sun Mingwei was an enlightened master, she would not be able to deal with the flames. This should be the Vermilion Bird's flame, which was left behind by a rank 1 spirit beast. Its power was beyond imagination. Chapter 35-31. Song Jifan frowned. As soon as he met the innocent and curious gaze of the deer, which was even clearer than the stream water it was drinking, he felt that it was somewhat familiar. Then, he remembered that this deer seemed to be the one he had encountered before. However, the last time he had encountered it was outside, but this time it was inside. He guessed that this deer was too naughty and sneaked out of the 100,000 Hills. Obviously, it wanted to see what it was like outside the 100,000 Hills. And this time, it sneaked out here again without its parents by its side. He suddenly smiled and was inexplicably excited. If the deer was here, he might not be able to defeat it, but with his current skills, he should be able to take down a deer. As long as he swallowed this deer, his body would become a little more tyrannical. At that time, even if he encountered the deer, he would have the power to fight it. If he swallowed the deer, then his gains would be even greater. He did not need to swallow anything else. He could directly find Chu Li, and after he recovered his enlightened mastery's cultivation, he would definitely be able to defeat Chu Li. Thinking of this, he became even more excited, so he gently stepped on the ground and smiled at the deer. The deer tilted its head and looked at him. Its clear eyes stared at him for a long time, as if hesitating. Then, it fiercely scratched and sent a stone flying. It let out an ing-ing sound, obviously recognizing Song Ji-fan at once. It turned its head and ran, rushing into the forest by the stream. Song Ji-fan saw that the situation was not good. He did not want the spirit beast to fly away, so he quickly rushed over. Ing, 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 ing. An angry deer's cry sounded, and a green light and a white light shot out from the forest, instantly appearing in front of him. Before he could react, the two lights had already reached his chest. Suddenly, an abundant force surged and knocked him out, causing him to fall heavily into the stream. Instantly, he was submerged in the ice-cold stream water. The stream looked very shallow, but in fact, he could not even show his head if he lay down. He wanted to move, but his whole body was covered with a strange force, like electric current flowing. His whole body was numb, and he could not move. Even if he desperately wanted to move, he had the heart but the strength. He could only watch himself lying in the water. He could see through the water that two deer had drawn close and were watching him closely. Fortunately, he had decided to seal his power at the Xiantian realm. If he was at the Hotian realm, he wouldn't be able to breathe through his mouth and nose. Then, he would have no choice but to leave. Otherwise, he would have drowned to death. The sect leader of Chongqing sect, a heavenly god expert, had actually drowned in a small stream. He would become the laughingstock of the world, and Chongqing sect would never be able to raise their heads again. Just thinking about it was terrifying. The two deer, one green and one white, were staring at Song Ji-fan. Seeing that his eyes were open and could even blink, the green deer obviously recognized him. It immediately cried out twice, then jumped down and kicked Song Ji-fan with its front hooves. Song Ji-fan wanted to avoid it, but it was impossible. He could only watch helplessly as he was kicked out of the water and sent flying into the air. The other white deer leaped into the air. It was more than 100 feet high, as though it was flying. Its antlers touched Song Ji-fan's lower back. Song Ji-fan suddenly opened his mouth wide. He wanted to scream, but he couldn't make a sound. His whole body was swallowed by intense pain. It was as if he was in flames or in a pot of boiling oil. The force of the white deer's antlers was extremely strange. Wherever it passed, it was extremely painful. Moreover, his body was paralyzed, and he couldn't move at all. He couldn't even move his tongue. Opening his mouth was the limit. As soon as he opened his mouth, saliva flowed out. Tears also flowed uncontrollably. He was in a sorry state. It was a great shame, a great shame. He couldn't wait to break the seal now, turn into an enlightened master, kill these two deer, and swallow the young deer. However, when he thought of Chu Li, he immediately held back. Now, no one could see his sorry state. As long as he could hold his head high in front of Chu Li, it would be fine. What's more, deer were herbivores with docile temperaments. Even if they were annoyed, they wouldn't kill him. At most, the two deer would torture him a little and then leave. They wouldn't kill him. Thinking of this, he closed his eyes and let his tears and saliva flow. He pretended that he had fainted. Bang, 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 bang. The two deer, one green and one white, took turns to hit him, making him unable to fall. One of the two deer was on this side, and the other was on the opposite side. They were separated by 100 meters. Song Ji-fan flew around in the air, like a ball being hit by them. He gritted his teeth in hatred, but the numbness in his whole body was getting worse. He couldn't even move his eyes, let alone his tongue. His vision was blurred, and his body flew around again. He couldn't help but feel the urge to vomit. Unfortunately, he couldn't vomit even if he wanted to. His stomach and intestines were paralyzed, and even his heart had stopped beating. If it weren't for his strong body and the existence of the ageless longevity technique, he would have been played to death by the two deer. He secretly regretted that he should have broken the seal. Those who said that deer were gentle animals deserved to die. They tortured him like this. Not to mention humans, even weaker spirit beasts would have died. At this point, even if he wanted to break the seal, he couldn't do anything. He couldn't circulate the Heart Sutra to break the seal. He could only resign himself to fate and try to persevere until they were done playing. Wah wah! The young deer cried out and also jumped into the air. It imitated the green and white deer and hit Song Ji-fan with its antlers. Song Jifan secretly complained. Although the deer was in pain, it wasn't any less. After playing for a while, the young deer got bored and turned around to run away. The green and white deer saw it and hurriedly followed. Song Jifan fell heavily to the ground with a bang and couldn't move. After a while, he finally recovered a bit of strength. The numbness faded a little, and he hurriedly stood up. His mouth was full of blood, and his internal organs were seriously injured. However, for someone who cultivated the ageless longevity technique, these were only superficial wounds and weren't a problem. He turned over and sat up, then went to the stream to wash his face. His face was full of tears, saliva, and snot, which made him feel disgusted. After washing, he immediately felt refreshed. His mood also improved. He just treated it as a nightmare and forgot about them. It was better to find spirit beasts and leave as soon as possible. The 100,000 mountain range was really too powerful. If he didn't seal his martial arts, he would die without a doubt. But if his martial arts were sealed, it was also extremely dangerous. There were dangers everywhere, and every spirit beast was a threat. He sighed and forcefully exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. Then he got up and walked along the stream into the mountain. After a dozen steps, his expression changed slightly. He was startled and looked at a cave on a mountainside. He suddenly had a strong intuition that this cave might be hiding something very important. He looked around and slowly walked toward the cave. He didn't feel any danger, so he boldly walked in. When he entered the cave, he found that it was a very shallow cave with some withered grass inside. Because it was facing south, it was clean and there were no insects. He observed carefully and felt that something like the spiritual bear might have been here. But since it wasn't here now, it should have moved long ago, leaving only this place. He carefully looked around and felt that it was a little strange. If it was just a cave, it wouldn't give him such a feeling. He reached out and knocked on the stone wall and found something strange. Chapter 35-32. He drew a circle with ease. The treasure sword cut through the stone wall like tofu, forming a circle without any obstruction. With a gentle suction and pull, the round stone slab was pulled out and placed aside. Suddenly, a gentle light shone out and fell on his body. He saw that it was still a cave inside. This cave was much more spacious than the outside. Everything inside was made of white jade. There were jade beds, jade tables, jade chairs, jade stools, and even jade cabinets. There were rows of ancient books on the shelves, which made him very envious. This was obviously a cave, and it must have been left behind by a senior master. An old man sat on the jade bed in the center. The old man was lifelike, as if he was meditating. There was no sign of decay. His face was rosy, and his skin was smooth. He had a youthful complexion. He wore a snow-white robe that wrapped around his body, which shocked Song Jifan. He was startled and focused his senses. The old man was indeed lifeless, but with such a lifelike face, he could not help but think that the old man must be an enlightened master. But this enlightened master did not have an enlightened God field. If an enlightened master ascended to heaven, his remains would spread out an enlightened God field, which would be a great deterrent. Grandmasters could not get close to it, and they could not destroy it. Only enlightened masters could get close, and enlightened masters would not destroy the remains of enlightened masters. Respecting enlightened masters was the same as respecting oneself. He frowned and thought about it. Was this old man really alive? He floated into the cave and slowly approached the old man. Then he closed fists, saluted, and coughed. "Senior, sorry to disturb you. I am Song Jifan. I did not know that you were meditating here. Please forgive me." After he said this, he saw that the old man did not move. He became bold and took 2 steps closer, but he still could not sense the enlightened God field. After he was this close, he could sense that this old man was not an enlightened master. He became bolder and circled the old man. After carefully examining him, his long sword slowly moved toward a jade box in the old man's hand. The jade box was about the size of a book page. After the long sword moved toward the jade box, he took a step back to prevent the old man from suddenly waking up and attacking him. Although he was certain that the old man was dead, such a soundless and lifelike scene gave him the misconception that the old man was not dead and was merely meditating. The long sword opened the jade box, but there was no mechanism. He then used the long sword to pick up a small booklet in the box. The yellowish booklet was shining with a bright yellow light. This silk paper was definitely not an ordinary item. He used his sword to pry open the outermost sheet and saw the first sheet. He was startled. Art of the Tiger. Art of the Imperial Tiger. Song Jifan thought for a moment and muttered to himself. After a moment, he remembered and was overjoyed. Art of the Imperial Tiger. Art of the Imperial Tiger. He thought about what kind of martial art this was. The art of Imperial Tiger, one of the main cultivation techniques of the Spirit Beast sect, was on par with the art of Imperial Dragon of the Immortal Attraction Mountain. It was the core cultivation technique of the Spirit Beast sect. Why did it appear in the hands of this old man? Could it be that this elder was also a disciple of the Spirit Beast sect? He then remembered that ever since the Spirit Beast sect entered the 100,000 Hills, they were completely annihilated. No one knew how they were annihilated. They only knew that they were surrounded and killed by the low-grade spirit beasts. As for how many died and how many survived, no one knew. After all, no one entered the 100,000 Hills, and it was impossible for them to see. Moreover, no disciples of the Spirit Beast sect escaped. The annihilation of the Spirit Beast sect became a mystery. This old man actually had the art of Imperial Tiger. He must be a disciple of the Spirit Beast sect that escaped, or a survivor of the Spirit Beast sect that hid here. In the end, he didn't dare to come out and sealed himself in a cave like this. When he thought about this, his respect for this old man disappeared. As for the fact that he was immortal like a god after death, he must have consumed some spirit fruit in the 100,000 Hills that had such a miraculous effect. It was not because of his cultivation level. He suddenly had a flash of inspiration and could not help but laugh out loud. He suddenly remembered that Chu Li was also a disciple of the Goddess Attraction Mountain and cultivated the art of the dragon taming. Chu Li was also a proud and arrogant person. He must have been disdainful or unwilling to be conferred as a god by the Outland. So he wanted to become a god himself. In the world, if one wanted to become a god, other than finding another way to use the body transformation pill, there was only one other way, and that was to cultivate the unique study of the Spirit Beast sect's 4 sections. Chu Li learned the art of the dragon taming, so he must want to learn the art of the tiger taming. When he thought about this, he was overjoyed. He wanted to dance and celebrate. He felt that he found the key to get back the Sky Killer Sword. It was this art of the tiger taming. If he used the art of the tiger taming to exchange for the Sky Killer Sword, Chu Li would definitely agree. He had no choice but to agree. Otherwise, he would threaten him to tear the art of the tiger taming and make the art of the tiger taming lost forever. Chu Li's road to becoming an enlightened master would be severed, and he could only obediently seal as a god. Chu Li would not be satisfied. He would definitely think that even if he gave him the Sky Killer Sword, he could still snatch it back. When he thought about this, he could not help but laugh. He felt that he was finally in the pink of misfortune. His luck had turned for the better. Who would have thought that after being beaten up so badly by the 2 deer, they would send him here? This was really joy after rage. Luck was still on his side and finally gave him a bright path. When he thought about this, he was anxious. Suddenly, footsteps and whistling sounds came from outside. With a roar, a spirit tiger appeared outside the cave. Song Jifan did not dare to delay any longer. He could not care about reading other books. He picked up the art of the tiger taming and disappeared on the spot. In the next moment, he returned to the floating mountain. Chu Li was cultivating hard on the floating mountain. He realized that the vermilion bird's flame was still burning in his body. A small cluster of flames danced around in his body, looking for his weakness. It did not give up. He sighed inwardly. This ball of flame had its own soul and was like a living creature, constantly looking for an opportunity to take advantage of. Unfortunately, the power of the 10th level of the Supreme Vajra scripture was extraordinary, forcefully restraining its burning. Through the omniscient mirror, he knew every movement on the floating mountain. He knew that after Song Jifan came back, he quickly left. Although the bishop's basilica was protected by an invisible force and could not be seen, he could still speculate from the situation outside the basilica. 2 days later, he was cultivating hard. Suddenly, his heart moved, and he appeared in his own courtyard in the house of High Duke. Li Meng was still chanting under the glorious tree. She looked solemn like Guanyin. Chu Li nodded in satisfaction. He saw Shui Ling standing in front of him. She whispered, "Master, Song Jifan is here again." Chu Li smiled. "He is alone?" The omniscient mirror had already seen Song Jifan standing with his hands behind his back. His green robe was fluttering and his golden crown was shining. He had a graceful and luxurious aura. "Yes," Shui Ling whispered. "There is no one around him. It seems like he came alone. He seems to be fearless. I'm afraid he is not here with good intentions." Chu Li smiled and nodded at Li Meng. He then strode to the main door. He closed fists, saluted, and smiled at Song Jifan. "Chief Song, what brings you here? If you provoke me again, don't blame me for being merciless." "Chu Li, I'm not provoking you this time. I want to make a deal," Song Jifan said. Chu Li smiled playfully. "Tell me." Song Jifan took out a thin booklet and threw it to Chu Li. Chapter 35-33. Song Jifan looked at him with a smile. He stood with his hand behind his back, looking proud and proud. Chu Li looked up at him and continued to look down at the thin booklet. It was antique, obviously an antique. It was at least a few hundred years old. Although he did not know what material it was made of, it was definitely not an ordinary item. The words "tiger taming technique" were written on it. It shocked him to his core. He always thought that the other 3 heart techniques he was looking for were white tiger power. Now it seemed that it was not the case. It was most likely this tiger taming technique. He continued to read. There was only the first level of heart technique. Even so, it was already very subtle. Without a strong soul, it would be difficult to cultivate. He quickly scanned through it and imprinted it into his mind. Then, he tried to circulate it in his body. Suddenly, a strange aura appeared and circulated endlessly in his body. It was like fog or smoke, drilling into his bones and then disappearing without a sound. Chu Li used the omniscient mirror to observe his body. He then tried to clench his fist. He realized that his strength had increased a little. Tiger taming technique seemed to be good at increasing strength. He already had amazing divine power. With this tiger taming technique, he would be even better. More importantly, this art of Imperial Tiger was the white tiger power that he had been searching for. Although he couldn't say it out loud, he could sense that it and the art of Imperial Tiger originated from the same source. They were the same mental cultivation method. He finished flipping through the booklet and looked up at Song Jifan. "Chief Song, what do you want? You should know what I'm thinking." "Chu Li, what do you think?" Song Jifan said proudly. Chu Li shook his head. "I don't understand." Song Jifan scoffed. "I have the complete tiger taming technique. Do you want it?" Chu Li smiled. "Yes, I want it. If the price is too high, then there is no need. Tell me your request." "Why ask when you already know the answer?" "Sky Killer Sword." Song Jifan said coldly. Chu Li shook his head. "Impossible." Song Jifan scoffed. "Chu Li, I know what you're doing." Chu Li smiled. "Oh, Cult Master Song, tell me about it." Song Jifan sneered. "You can't hide it from me. You definitely don't want to become a god. You want to cultivate to become one yourself. Am I right?" "Half right, half wrong." Chu Li shook his head and said, "I want to cultivate to become a god, but if I can't cultivate to become a god, of course, I can also become a god. It's the same whether I become a god or an enlightened master." "Wrong, very wrong." Song Jifan snorted and shook his head. "These guys who have become gods will never reveal the secrets behind this. To tell you the truth, there is a huge difference between becoming a god and becoming a god." Chu Li was curious. He only felt that becoming a god was freer, but becoming a god wasn't. It was as if he was shackled. Becoming a heavenly deity was supposed to be more carefree and unrestrained. So how could he be even less free? If that were the case, what would be the point of being a heavenly god? Thus, he had always been working hard to pursue the path of defying the heavens and becoming a god. Song Jifan said, There's no harm in telling you this. After becoming a god, a trace of your soul will be locked in the sky beyond heaven. Your life and death will be in the hands of the sky beyond heaven. As long as the sky beyond heaven is angry, the so-called enlightened master will have no power to resist. However, becoming a god is different. The sky beyond heaven doesn't care at all. The world is vast, and you can do whatever you want without any restrictions. Chuli nodded and said, Indeed. Song Jifan snorted and said, People like us, how can we be restricted by others? Chuli shook his head. Actually, how can people be free and unrestrained? They will be restricted at all times. Unless you are cold and heartless and treat family and friends as nothing, then you can be free. Otherwise, how can you be free? Being an enlightened master was actually no different from the officialdom. Even if one entered the officialdom was dangerous and there were many rules and regulations. It was not as free and unrestrained as the people in the countryside, but there were still countless people who wanted to step into the officialdom and become a person who stood at the peak of power. Even if an enlightened master was restricted compared to the sky beyond heaven and innate masters, they were still people who looked down on all beings. They were below 1 and above 10,000 people. Who could resist the temptation? Song Jifan sneered. You don't mean what you say? All right. Since you don't want to cultivate to become a god, let's forget about this deal. I'll leave the booklet with you. I'll go back and destroy the rest. This is the original copy of the Taming Tiger technique. Chuli smiled and shook his head. Destroying the original copy and leaving a copy is the same. It's better to leave this heart technique behind. Song Jifan scoffed and said, I can swear to God that I didn't leave a copy. Otherwise, I'll be struck by the 5 thunders. Chuli laughed and did not say anything. He knew that Song Jifan was not afraid of the 5 thunders. Back then, he witnessed the heavenly thunder with his own eyes, and it still could not do anything to him. He also benefited from the heavenly thunder and achieved the 9th level of the indestructible physique of Vajra. Goodbye. Song Jifan turned and left. Chuli said, Leader Song, you can actually give up. You will never get the Sky Killer Sword. I've already thrown it in the 100,000 hills. Ridiculous. Song Jifan turned his head and said coldly, You can go to the 100,000 hills. Chuli smiled. Leader Song, if you can go to the 100,000 hills, why can't I? There's no harm in telling you. The Sky Killer Sword is in the valley of the Jade Bamboo Peak in the 100,000 hills. You can go look for it. So we can't make this deal, and I can't get it back. Ridiculous. Song Jifan did not believe him at all. Chuli smiled. So what you said about the Sky Killer technique in the Great Heaven Peak is also ridiculous. Do you really think I'll believe it? It's up to you whether you believe it or not. I've really been to the 100,000 hills, but you haven't. Song Jifan waved his hand and said, Forget it. Since you're not interested, I'll just take it that I came for nothing. Chuli said, How can I let Leader Song come for nothing? How about this? You leave the 2nd volume, and I'll exchange someone with you. Who? Song Jifan's expression changed slightly. He scoffed. Baili Na? Baili Na is on the floating mountain. It's impossible to catch him. What about this person? Chuli smiled. He raised his voice and said, Xueling. Yes, master. Xueling appeared in a white gown. She carried a handsome young man in her hand. She looked dejected. She stared at Song Jifan with her eyes wide open and smiled bitterly. Lu Jun. Song Jifan frowned. Chuli smiled and said, How is it, Leader Song? This person is considered your confidant, right? I'm ashamed to say this. I learned all this from you, Leader Song. Song Jifan gritted his teeth. His handsome face was filled with anger as if he was going to explode at any time. Chuli, what a despicable person. He never thought that Chuli would turn the tables. His ability to turn the tables was really hateful. We're the same. You don't have to criticize me. Chuli waved his hand and smiled. Now let's have a good talk. Do you want to make this deal? Lu Jun, do you want to exchange for the 2nd volume of the Tiger Taming Technique? Song Jifan took a deep breath and looked at Lu Jun. Lu Jun quickly said, Leader, don't worry about me. He won't dare to kill me. Chuli looked at him with a smile. Oh, why do you say that? Lu Jun scoffed and said, If you kill me, leader will kill even more protectors of the public house to avenge me. Chu Li shook his head. The protectors of the public house will hide for a while, so he won't have a chance unless he breaks into a public house. However, I'm guarding the public house. Does he have the guts to come? Chapter 35-34. Chu Li sighed and shook his head. If that's the case, then I won't trade. Sigh. Lu Jun, it's really a pity for you. In the eyes of your cult master, you're not even worth a mental cultivation method. This mental cultivation method isn't even the secret of your cult. It's just a very ordinary set of mental cultivation methods. It might be important to me, but it's actually not that important. I only have the art of dragon control, and this art of tiger control. The remaining 2 sets of mental cultivation methods have basically been lost, so there's no difference in cultivating 1 set, 2 sets, or even 3 sets. I won't let you succeed. Lu Jun gritted his teeth. Chu Li, kill me if you have the guts. Chu Li shook his head. We're not enemies. How can I kill you? Xueling. Yes, master. Xueling nodded her head slightly. Her cold and beautiful face slightly darkened. Then, she slapped Lu Jun's lower abdomen with her left hand. This article was written by First. Lu Jun suddenly screamed. His eyes widened. Ew. Xueling gently shook his collar. He suddenly trembled, and his inner energy flowed out faster. In the blink of an eye, it was all gone. His body was like a punctured balloon. All the air escaped out. Lu Jun. Song Jifan shouted and said coldly. Chu Li, don't you dare. Chu Li smiled. This time I crippled his martial arts. Next time, I'll just kill him. That way, he won't be sneaking around all day. If he wants to cause trouble for the House of High Dukes, he'll die. Chu Li, I originally wanted to trade, but now I've changed my mind. Song Jifan gritted his teeth. I originally wanted to trade the second half of the tiger taming technique for Lu Jun, but now I won't trade it all. I'll only trade part of it. Chu Li smiled and looked at him. What do you mean? Song Jifan took out a small, antique booklet and threw it to Chu Li. You've crippled Lu Jun's martial arts, so I can only give you this booklet. I don't have a last one. If you don't let Lu Jun go, I will destroy the last booklet. I swear to God that I'm not lying. Chu Li took the booklet and flipped through it. He nodded thoughtfully and could not help but laugh. This is only the second booklet. Looks like you've torn each layer into a booklet and want to trade with me layer by layer. I still have one. It's the rest of the mental cultivation method. Song Jifan shook his head. But it's not with me. Chu Li sighed. Looks like you don't have any sincerity in the deal at all. You're just toying with me. If that's the case, then forget it. Let's go our separate ways. I'll kill Lu Jun, and you'll tear up the tiger taming technique. We'll go our separate ways. With that, he turned around to leave. Wait. Song Jifan gritted his teeth and said, What's the use of keeping the heaven-slaughtering sword? Chu Li shook his head. That's a rare treasure sword. I can use a sharper treasure sword to trade with you, Song Jifan said. In addition to the last mental cultivation method, think about it carefully. There won't be many opportunities like this. This is the only time. Chu Li smiled and said, Leader Song, it looks like you still haven't given up. Let me tell you, forget about the tiger taming technique. Even if you give me the remaining 3 mental cultivation methods, I won't trade. Why? Song Jifan was puzzled. Chu Li smiled and said, Because I know that once you get the heaven-slaughtering sword, the first person you kill will be me. I can swear to God that I won't kill you, Song Jifan said. Chu Li shook his head and said, Unfortunately, I don't believe your oath. Are you afraid of the heavenly thunder? Hee hee. Song Jifan's expression changed slightly. He said coldly, I'm not a treacherous person like you. Whether I'm treacherous or not, we both know. Chu Li shook his head and said, Leader Song, you better give up. You don't have to do it again and again. It's impossible for you to get the heaven-slaughtering sword. It's better to think of other ways to dominate the world. Chu Li, are you really so determined? Song Jifan squinted his eyes, and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Must you block my way? Chu Li said, This road is blocked. Good, good. Song Jifan took out a thick, ancient book. In front of Chu Li, he tore a few pages and threw them to him. He then rubbed his hands, and the pages turned into powder. Chuli reached out and took the pages. He shook his head and laughed. If that's the case, there's nothing else we can talk about, right? Since it's a deal, I'll be generous this time. Ling. Yes, master. Ling threw the pages. Lu Jun shot toward Song Jifan like a stone. Song Jifan reached out and gently grabbed Lu Jun. Lu Jun landed firmly on the ground. He looked depressed and sighed. Leader, I've embarrassed you. Shut up. Song Jifan patted his shoulder. You go first. Yes, leader. Lu Jun nodded. Song Jifan patted him on the shoulder and instantly restored his inner energy and cultivation base. This was one of the marvelous aspects of the art of ageless live forever. It was almost magical. Lu Jun floated away and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Chuli squinted his eyes and smiled. The art of longevity was indeed strange, but it was also amazing. Song Jifan took a deep breath and said slowly, Chuli, since there's no possibility of a deal, let's fight. Chuli smiled. Can cult leader Song block my sword technique? I'll try, Song Jifan said. Chuli squinted his eyes. Suddenly, there was an explosion on Song Jifan's left shoulder and a small hole appeared. Ha! Song Jifan sneered. Let's see how many more times you can use it. He suddenly flashed in front of Chuli. Chuli did not move. He stared at him and shot the god-killing needle again. Bang! Another small hole appeared on Song Jifan's right shoulder. His shirt was torn, and a piece of white jade could be seen turning into powder. There were still a few pieces of jade on his shoulder. They were obviously able to block the god-killing needle. Chuli looked at him in surprise. Amazing! Song Jifan smiled proudly. Your sword technique is just extraordinary. Once I'm on guard, what can you do to me? He secretly rejoiced. He did not expect these pieces of peaceful heart jade to be able to block Chu Li's sword technique. These peaceful heart jades were used by the church for the disciples' cultivation. They could assist in cultivation and increase the efficiency of cultivation, thus increasing the speed of cultivation. They were usually placed in cattail hassocks, and the disciples did not know about them. He secretly dismantled some of them and placed them on his shoulder. They could protect him from a close distance. Chuli frowned and stared again. Bang, 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 bang. Small holes appeared on Song Jifan's shoulder. In the end, his entire shirt was blown to pieces. Since his shoulder was gone, it could only fall off, revealing his singlet. It showed off his strong arms, and the lines of his muscles were soft like a cheetah. Song Jifan attacked Chuli with all his might, but was dodged every time. The God's Field did not hinder Chuli at all. The 10th level of indestructible body of titanium was far more powerful than imagined. It could completely block the God's Field and could even form its own unique field. It was just that the range was extremely narrow and was far from the wide God's Field. Even so, it faintly had the power of an enlightened master. As a grandmaster, such power was comparable to an enlightened master. Chuli suddenly laughed out loud. Leader Song, your amulet is gone. Can you still block it? Song Jifan scoffed. Chuli, can you still use your sword? Chuli said, no more, no less. I still have one more sword. Then try it. Song Jifan sneered. Chapter 35:35. Chuli sighed. If that's the case, then take my sword. The last god-killer needle stabbed out. Song Jifan groaned. His expression changed slightly, but he gritted his teeth to suppress his trance. Facing Chu Li's right palm, he fiercely slapped it down. Bang! Both of them flew out. Chu Li somersaulted in the air and stabbed out with another god-killer needle. Ah! Song Jifan was caught off guard. He screamed and fell straight down. Chu Li was overjoyed. He was about to rush forward, but he suddenly flipped back and dodged far away. Bang! Song Jifan slapped his palm in front of him. His hand slowly returned to its normal size. His right palm had almost doubled in size. His blood vessels were like huge earthworms wriggling. It was terrifying. A huge palm print appeared on the ground. It seemed to be faintly cracking. If Chu Li rushed forward earlier, he would have been hit by this palm. Although he did not know the name of the palm, such a powerful palm was indeed shocking. Even if he took it, he might not come out unscathed. Thus, he stabbed out with another god-killer needle. Song Jifan groaned and suddenly disappeared. Chu Li shook his head and did not chase after him. It seemed that the power of his god-killer needles was not enough. He should combine two needles into one so that he could restrain him next time. Song Jifan appeared next to Lu Jun in the next moment and pulled him away. In the next moment, he appeared in the basilica of the floating mountain. Bishop, Lu Jun saw Song Jifan's pale face and quickly said, "Are you okay? Do you want to rest? Do you think I'm not his opponent?" Song Jifan said coldly. Lu Jun shook his head. "Of course not." Song Jifan scoffed. "I'm angry because of something else. It's all my fault." Lu Jun shook his head and sighed. "I didn't want to go to Chongming Town, but something happened. I wanted to secretly take a look, but I didn't expect to be caught. Chongming Town's informants are too powerful. Stay away from them in the future. Don't look for trouble." Song Jifan scoffed. "Even I can't get anything out of them, let alone you." Yes, yes. Lu Jun quickly nodded and said, "No wonder Elder Bai has always been defeated by the E Public House. It's not that Elder Bai is useless. It's that the people from the E Public House are too powerful." As they were talking, Elder Fong floated in. She was dressed in a dark green gown and had the graceful figure of a young lady. She glanced at the two of them and smiled. "Bishop, you look so pale. Did you suffer a setback at Chu Li's side?" "Humph." Song Jifan sat down angrily. Lu Jun did not dare to look at Elder Fong. Elder Fong said, "I just heard that cult master wants to see Bailey Na. Well, I want to ask him what ideas he has." Song Jifan said, "This old guy is quite resourceful." Elder Fong chuckled. "Why? Chu Li didn't make a deal?" "No." Song Jifan shook his head and said, "I have completely given up now. Being soft won't work. I have to be forceful. I have to snatch it back. Actually, if we find the other 3 heart techniques, you'll be tempted. It's just one. It's very difficult." Elder Fong shook her head and said, "Think about it. As long as he has the 3 heart techniques, he will have a chance to become an enlightened master. He won't be afraid of you then. However, with only one, he can't become an enlightened master. How can he block your sky killer sword?" "Yes, that's right." Song Jifan scoffed. "He's afraid of me, so he doesn't dare to hand over the sky killer sword." Thinking about this, he felt much better. Every time he suffered a setback at Chu Li's hands, he would suddenly realize that Chu Li was still afraid of him. Then, he would be energized and his fighting spirit would rise again. Elder Fong said, "It's a pity that we can't find the other 3 heart techniques. Otherwise, we can really send them to him in exchange for the Sky Killer Sword. Even if he became an enlightened master, he would only die under the Sky Killer Sword. It was impossible to escape. As long as he had the Sky Killer Sword, there was no harm in letting Chu Li become an enlightened master. It was like fattening livestock before eating it. That's not possible. Even if I have the heart technique, I still have to cultivate it. I don't know how long it will take to cultivate the 3 heart techniques. I can't wait." Song Jifan shook his head. Elder Fong nodded lightly. "Leader, did you destroy the heart technique?" "Yes, the original has been destroyed. Only a copy is left," Song Jifan said. "Then let Bailey Na send it to the secret vault. He must be extremely curious about the secret vault now. It's good to let him gain some knowledge and make him more loyal." Elder Fong smiled sweetly. "That's good too. Call Bailey Na over." Song Jifan nodded lightly. "Yes." Lu Jun quickly closed fist saluted. He quickly disappeared from the basilica. Song Jifan scoffed. Lu Jun was also caught by Chu Li and his martial arts was crippled. "He's really too much. He used Lu Jun to trade with me. I was almost embarrassed. Fortunately, he crippled Lu Jun's martial arts first. Otherwise, I would really have to exchange the heart technique for Lu Jun. Leader, do you really intend to trade?" Elder Fong smiled faintly and glanced at him with her charming eyes. Song Jifan nodded. "This tiger taming technique is not considered an exquisite heart technique. What's wrong with giving it to him?" Elder Fong chuckled. She knew that the leader did not mean what he said. Footsteps were heard. Chu Li followed Lu Jun in big strides. Leader, elder. Chu closed fists, saluted, and stood aside respectfully. Song Jifan picked up a jade box from the desk and was about to pass it to Chu. Elder Fong took it first and opened the jade box gently. She carefully flipped through the booklet and nodded in satisfaction. Bailey Na, this is a heart technique that the leader obtained from a fortuitous encounter. Chu smiled. Congratulations, leader. I wonder what kind of amazing heart technique it is. Tiger taming technique. Elder Fong smiled faintly and closed the jade box. She passed it to Chu. It was originally an amazing technique of the Spirit Beast sect. Now, it's considered our faction secret. Take it and send it back to the secret vault. Chu took it with both hands and carefully said, "Yes." Don't look through it on the way. This is the rule. Elder Fong said. Yes. Chu nodded firmly. Song Jifan said, Lu Jun. Elder Fong smiled. No need for Lu Jun. Bailey Na can do it himself. All right. Song Jifan slowly nodded. Yes. Chu carefully kept the jade box in his arms. He closed fists, saluted, and left the basilica. Lu Jun said, Leader, Elder Fong, Elder Bailey might not know the way. Should I show him the way? If he doesn't know the way, he won't ask. Elder Fong chuckled. Everyone knows about the secret vault. You don't have to worry about it. You, on the other hand, tell me in detail how you were captured by the public house. Sai, it's a long story. It's really inexplicable. Lu Jun looked dejected. As soon as I stepped into Chongming town, I was immediately discovered. Even if I disguised myself as an old man, I still couldn't escape. These people are really amazing. You have to be more careful in the future. Elder Fong said. Did you reveal any important information? Don't worry, Elder. I won't say a word even if I die. Lu Jun nodded firmly. Elder Fong's charming almond-shaped eyes looked at him gently. She nodded slowly and felt that he was not lying. She smiled. In that situation, it's actually okay to reveal some information. Next time you're caught, don't be stubborn. Just say what you need to say. Our longevity faction is open and honest. There's nothing to be afraid of. Of course not. Lu Jun shook his head. Elder Fong chuckled. Song Jifan said, All right, Elder. Stop teasing him. Lu Jun, go and rest. Chapter 35-36. Chu Li's steps were slow, as if he was taking a stroll. It's worth collecting. He knew where the secret vault was. It was in a cave in the northwest of the floating mountain. There were few people there, and the surroundings were bare. It was almost impossible to sneak in unnoticed. The jade box in his arms seemed to be emitting a cold aura, reminding him of the existence of the tiger taming technique. He had an urge to take the tiger taming technique and disappear. It didn't matter if his identity as Bailey Na was exposed. This was the best chance to get the tiger taming technique. Once the tiger taming technique entered the secret vault, it would be impossible for him to break in again. But once Bailey Na's identity was exposed, all his efforts would disappear. If he could succeed and stir up internal strife, he might be able to enter the secret vault again to get the tiger taming technique. He might even be able to choose a secret skill or divine technique from a vault if he made a contribution. So there were many opportunities to enter the secret vault. He just had to wait. But he didn't want to wait now. The appearance of the tiger taming technique was a great encouragement to him. He once again cheered himself up and escaped from the predicament of having nowhere to go. He set off again and strode forward. He didn't have much time. The enlightened masters were getting stronger, and the opponents around him were getting stronger. If it wasn't for the deterrence of the deity's sword, Monk Lunming would have made a move already. If they continued to get stronger, the deity sword might not work. He needed to keep moving forward and rush on the enlightened master's path. He wanted to catch up to them and even surpass them. He wanted to be the most insignificant. After all, the art of longevity was much better than the tiger taming technique. More importantly, it wasn't the era of the Spirit Beast sect. The Spirit Beasts were all in the 100,000 hills. Even if he had the tiger taming technique, he wouldn't be able to cultivate it. But it was different for Chu Li. He had already cultivated the dragon taming technique. If he cultivated the tiger taming technique, the vermilion bird taming technique, and the black tortoise technique, he would have the hope of becoming a god. "Elder, how was it?" the elder in linen asked. Elder Fong nodded in satisfaction. "Passed. Congratulations, elder. Our Changshan denomination has grown again." The elder in linen smiled. You can read this hard technique, but don't cultivate it. Otherwise, you'll hurt yourself." Elder Fong glanced at him and said, "The tiger taming technique is different from other hard techniques." "Yes, elder." The elder in linen nodded. Elder Fong handed him the jade box and fluttered away. Chu Li returned to his courtyard and began to study the tiger taming technique. He realized that it was somewhat similar to the dragon taming technique, but there were also some differences. However, they were of the same origin. It was just that the specific route of channeling was different. Time passed unknowingly. When the sun set, Lu Jun knocked on the door of his courtyard, reeking of alcohol. He sat down at the stone table in the courtyard. Chu Li sat down and smiled at Lu Jun. "Brother Lu, did you suffer some losses? You don't look too good." "Sigh, don't mention it." Lu Jun shook his head and sighed, exhaling a breath that reeked of alcohol. After telling him what had happened, he said dejectedly, "It seems that in the eyes of the cult master, I am not as good as the art of Imperial Tiger." Chu Li quickly looked around and frowned. "Brother Lu, don't talk nonsense. What's there to hide?" Lu Jun snorted. "This is too disappointing." Chapter 35-37. "Who knows?" Lu Jun scoffed. Chu Li said, "I don't think so. Think about me. I offended the E-Public House, and in the end, didn't I just get rid of my martial arts? I didn't have to worry about my life. You were the same. You didn't hurt anyone from the E-Public House. How could you be killed?" "That's true." Lu Jun was startled and slowly nodded. Chu Li smiled and said, "The bishop is wise and powerful. You must have seen through this and was certain that Chu Li would not do anything to you, Brother Lu. That's why you hesitated and did not accept Chu Li's threat." "This Chu Li," Lu Jun scoffed. "He's extremely cunning. The bishop is too inexperienced in front of him. He's suppressed in every way. He's the bishop's nemesis." "You mustn't say that." Chu Li quickly waved his hand and helplessly shook his head. "Brother Lu, you mustn't drink anymore. You'll mess things up. Be careful of your words." "All right." Lu Jun also felt that his words were inappropriate. He was still very sober, just a little tipsy. He was bolder than usual and more open-minded. That was why he said some things without thinking. After saying it, he also felt that it was inappropriate. Chu Li said, "The bishop won't harm us." "Ah, yes." Lu Jun nodded. Chu Li sighed in relief and smiled. "I've encountered this kind of thing twice. It's nothing. We're just grandmasters. We can't fight against an enlightened master. It's okay to suffer losses. If I had to say, Chu Li is really amazing." Lu Jun shook his head and said, "Even though I've been captured by him, I still admire him quite a bit. He's obviously just a grandmaster, but he's able to fight against an enlightened master. He's the first one. Not even the bishop can do it." "That's true." Chu Li nodded. "So it's not embarrassing to fall in the hands of such a person." Yes. Lu Jun seemed to be finally happy. He laughed. "All right, I won't disturb your cultivation anymore. I'm leaving." He got up and left. Chu Li watched as Lu Jun disappeared into the twilight. He shook his head and smiled. Lu Jun was too naive. Song Jifan was not a broad-minded person. If he had heard what Chu Li said, he would probably have cast Lu Jun aside and abandoned him. In Song Jifan's eyes, the disciples of the Changshan denomination should trust him unconditionally and follow his orders without hesitation. They should never ask why and just do as he said. They were his swords and knives, not people with their own thoughts. Chu Li reappeared at Goddess Attraction Mountain and rang the bronze bell. Dong Jianxin hurried over and said helplessly, "Junior brother, what's wrong? Why are you disturbing Master's hard work again? He is currently in closed-door training to deal with the great changes." Chu Li saw that he was disheveled and smiled. "What big change? I don't know either." Dong Jianxin shook his head and said, "Judging from Master's solemn expression, it doesn't seem to be a small matter. Maybe something has happened in the realm beyond heavens." In short, there is nothing wrong with cultivating hard. Chuli nodded. Dong Jian said in his heart, "What happened this time?" Chuli smiled and said, "Senior brother, I got a tiger taming technique." Tiger taming technique? Dong Jianxin was stunned and then overjoyed. Is it really the spirit beast sex tiger taming technique? Chuli nodded slowly. Quick, let me take a look. Dong Jianxin said hurriedly. Chuli shook his head. Dong Jianxin suddenly showed a disappointed look. That's true. This technique is too precious. Chuli smiled and said, "Senior brother, what are you thinking about? It's just that this technique is still in my head and I need a pen and paper." Then come into the hall quickly. Dong Jianxin showed an embarrassed expression and at the same time was touched. He hurried into the hall and ground the ink himself. Because this hall was owned by Master Zhou Dunley, there was usually no one in it. It was empty and the ink was dry. It needed to be ground again and the paper was laid. Dong Jianxin did it meticulously. As the two were busy, suddenly there was a dragon's roar. The golden dragon flashed golden light under the bright moon and appeared in the clouds. Zhou Dunley floated into the hall and looked at Chu Li with a smile. He nodded with satisfaction. "Master." Chu Li Fist saluted and put down the pen. Dong Jianxin also solemnly saluted. Zhou Dunley waved his hand and smiled. "What are you writing?" Junior brother said he obtained the tiger taming technique and wants to write it down. Dong Jianxin said excitedly. He obtained the tiger taming technique? Zhou Dunley was stunned, and then his expression changed slightly. He shook his head and sighed. "Then it's best not to write it down." "Why, master?" Dong Jianxin was puzzled. The tiger taming technique is an antique study comparable to the dragon taming technique. It's useless for our goddess attraction mountain. Zhou Dunley waved his hand. "It's best not to cultivate it." "Master," Dong Jianxin was even more puzzled. Zhou Dunley sighed and shook his head. "Chuli, you really surprise me. You can always do these impossible things. The spirit beast sect is obviously extinct, but you can obtain this antique study." Chuli smiled and said, "I got it by accident. It was a coincidence. Do you know that there are no disciples of the spirit beast sect in the Outland?" Zhou Dunley said. Chuli narrowed his eyes. "Because of spirit beasts? Supreme spirit beasts?" "That's right." Zhou Dunley sighed. The disciples of the spirit beast sect caused so much trouble that they provoked the spirit beasts to retaliate. They were completely annihilated and disappeared from the world. Chuli asked, "Then why do we in the Black Tortoise Mountains still exist?" "They're all useless and they're apatheicized." Zhou Dunley said, "As long as they're apatheicized, there's nothing to worry about." If that's the case, why are there still four techniques that can be used to achieve apotheosis? Chuli was puzzled. Zhou Dunley said, "This is also the tacit understanding between the Outland and Supreme Spirit Beasts." Chuli pondered and smiled bitterly. Could it be a trap? A trap to lure the disciples of the Spirit Beast sect out? Something like that, Zhou Dunley said. But you can't say it's completely a trap. If your cultivation level is high enough, you can still survive, but you need to be extremely lucky. Chuli said, "What did the disciples of the Spirit Beast sect do that angered everyone?" "Species mutation." Zhou Dunley shook his head and sighed. "Letting different spirit beasts combine and create a new type of spirit beast." Chuli raised his eyebrows and slowly sighed. They're really digging their own graves. Although spirit beasts were collectively called spirit beasts, they were actually completely different types, such as turtles, cranes, dragons, and tigers. The difference between spirit beasts was like the difference between humans and spirit beasts. There was no difference. Letting different types of spirit beasts combine was like letting humans and beasts combine. Spirit beasts were smarter and stronger than humans. Such a method was no different from digging their own graves. It was really unimaginable. Zhou Dunley said, "If we only cultivate one heart technique, the spirit beasts won't bother with us. If we cultivate 4 heart techniques, it's fine if we don't become an enlightened master. They won't bother with us. But if we become an enlightened master, we'll definitely be hunted down by the supreme spirit beasts." "Master, why didn't you say so earlier?" Dong Jianxin said. "You've caused trouble for junior brother." Zhou dumbly looked up at the sky and shook his head with a smile. I'm worried about the Black Tortoise Mountain. I thought that your junior brother would cause trouble for them. Besides, your junior brother is bored. It's fine to find something to do. Sigh. Dong Jianxin shook his head. Chu Li smiled. Master, you want me to go against the Black Tortoise Mountain? He immediately understood that it was not that Master did not want to say it, but he was bound by the heavenly rules and could not say it. Zhou Dunley said, if we can obtain the heart technique of the Black Tortoise Mountain and combine the two to create a new heart technique, that would be the best. This was also my idea when I was young. Unfortunately, it never came true. The Taming Tiger technique and the Taming Dragon technique are compatible, but Chapter 35-38. Chu Li suddenly said, Master, don't worry. I won't just cultivate one. I'll merge them into one and create a new heart technique. That's good. Zhou Dunley smiled and looked at Chu Li with satisfaction. This disciple of his was the most worry-free one. He didn't have to break the heavenly rules and clearly understand what he meant. His comprehension was truly amazing. Looking at Dong Jianxin's confused expression again, he shook his head helplessly. This eldest disciple's personality was simple, straightforward, and honest, rigid, and serious. Chu Li said, Master, you wanted to merge two into one when you were young. It's not too late now, right? No. Zhou Dunley shook his head and looked up at the sky. Chu Li nodded, indicating that he understood. But there were two guesses as to why it was impossible. One was that after becoming an enlightened master, the heart technique was set and could no longer be changed. The other was that he missed the opportunity to obtain the heart technique of Black Tortoise Mountain and could not covet it after becoming an enlightened master. Zhou Dunley said, It's dangerous to do this, but it's the only way. What a pity. Dong Jianxin hurriedly said, Master, what else is there to pity? Zhou Dunley shook his head and said, If you want to cultivate the heart technique of the Spirit Beast sect, Spirit Beasts are the foundation. You need to cultivate them one by one. It's very time-consuming. You can't be as lucky as the evil Nether Dragon every time. Chu Li said, Master, don't worry about the Spirit Beasts. I have my own ideas. That's good. Zhou Dunley smiled. If you can comprehend the 4 heart techniques and merge them into one, that would be the best. Dong Jianxin scoffed, Master, it's already lucky to get the tiger taming technique. You still want to get the black tortoise power? Besides, there's also the invisible vermilion bird power. It's even more impossible. He still felt that Master was not straightforward. Just say what you can in one breath. Why do you have to be so hesitant and make your junior brother suffer for nothing? Chu Li did not complain. This was the reason why he did not want to become an enlightened master. Master Zhou Dunley must be even more helpless. That's why he let him suffer and secretly hoped that he could cultivate to become an enlightened master. Zhou Dunley said, Obtaining the tiger taming technique is already beyond my expectations. With Chu Li's luck, it's not impossible to find the vermilion bird power. I will do my best. Chu Li smiled. He already understood what Dong Jianxin meant. There is only one way to become a heavenly god without being surrounded and killed by superior grade spirit beasts, and that was to merge the 4 mental cultivation techniques into one, a brand new mental cultivation technique, and then cultivate to become a god. In this way, it was in line with the rules of the Outland and not to be chased by the supreme spirit beasts. However, the art of dragon manipulation and the other 3 mental cultivation techniques were all profound, and it was not an easy task to merge them together. Moreover, they still couldn't find the vermilion bird divine art. Moreover, according to Zhou Dunley's opinion, it would be better to cultivate the black tortoise divine art. With the 2 cultivation methods complementing each other, the cultivation speed would be faster. Chu Li decided to follow Zhou Dunley's instructions. He still had to listen to the old man's advice. Moreover, he had the vitality-devouring tortoise by his side, so it would be easier for him to cultivate the black tortoise power. His biggest problem now was that he did not have the black tortoise power. He couldn't possibly go to the Black Tortoise Mountain and snatch the Black Tortoise Divine Art. Not to mention, It was impossible for him to do so. Otherwise, the black tortoise divine art would have spread far and wide. As for the vermilion bird divine art, he thought of the little vermilion bird that was probably still waiting to kill him. As for taming it, he didn't even have the thought of taming it. This little vermilion bird had the shadow of a supreme grade martial artist behind it. Taming would be suicide. All right, I have to go back. I won't be back for a while. Zhou dumbly stood up. Chuli asked, Master, what happened? It's useless to talk about the Outland. Zhou dumbly shook his head. His expression was solemn. Chuli asked, Is it about Goddess Attraction Mountain? No, Zhou dumbly said. Azura's boundary is closest. Forget it. Chuli, you must be careful. Don't anger the spirit beast, or I won't be able to protect you. Yes, Master. Chuli fist saluted. Dong Jinshin said, Master, you have to be careful too. Zhou dumbly nodded with a smile and glided out of the main hall. Under the gazes of Chu Li and Dong Jinshin, he rose up and mounted the back of the golden dragon. Then, the golden dragon let out a soft roar and disappeared into the sky in the blink of an eye. Sigh, why does Master need to get involved in the Outland's affairs? Dong Jinshin sighed. Master should just stay at Goddess Attraction Mountain and not care about anything. Chuli laughed. As an enlightened master, I have no choice. That's true. Dong Jinshin sighed. I hope nothing happens to Master. It's too dangerous to get involved in the Outland's affairs. Chuli said, Master is not a celestial after all. You'll be fine. Sigh, I hope so. Dong Jinshin nodded helplessly. Chuli smiled. Senior brother, do you still need the tiger taming technique? Write it down. Dong Jinshin said. Even if you can't cultivate it, it's good to read it. All right, where's the spirit beast ring? Chuli smiled. I put it somewhere else. Dong Jinshin scoffed. Put such an important treasure somewhere else. Chuli smiled. It's too inconvenient to carry it around. All right then, Dong Jinshin said. After I read the tiger taming technique, I'll see if I can combine them. Chuli nodded and did not say anything else. He wrote down the tiger taming technique. Early in the morning, Chuli turned back into Bailey Na and returned to the courtyard of the floating mountain. He immediately began to comprehend the tiger taming technique in the courtyard while slowly practicing his fist techniques. There was a knock on the door. Bailey Na, Elder Fong wants to see you. Chuli agreed and opened the door to the courtyard. He saw a delicate and pretty girl standing outside. She smiled at him and said, Bailey Na, come with me. Thank you. Senior sister Emo Chu Li fist saluted. Emo Jingya giggled and said, Being called senior sister by you makes me feel very uncomfortable. Chu Li smiled. Those who reach first come first. I joined the sect late, so of course, I have to call you senior sister. Just call me Emo Jingya. Emo Jingya shook her head. Chu Li said, You don't have to be so polite. Senior sister Emo, as the two talked, they arrived at the Heaven's Punishment Hall and saw that Song Ji-fan and Elder Fong were there. Lu Jun stood at the side and gave him a look. Chuli nodded his head to show that he understood. After Chuli fist saluted, Song Ji-fan said, Bailey Na, I'm going to start my isolated cultivation. I still need you and Lu Jun to worry about the outside matters. Chuli was stunned. If the bishop goes into isolated cultivation, what about Chuli? Song Ji-fan sneered. Let it be happy for a while. Once I've mastered the divine technique, I'll be able to take care of him easily. Chuli looked at him suspiciously. Song Ji-fan's face darkened. Why, you don't believe me? Chuli shook his head. Since the bishop is so confident, I believe you. But how long will it take? Half a year is enough. Song Ji-fan scoffed. Chuli quickly said, That's good. I'm just afraid that the bishop will go into isolated cultivation for more than 10 years. I don't know what Chuli will be like by then. Don't worry. I'll avenge you. Song Ji-fan scoffed. And Lu Jun's revenge. Lu Jun said, I'm counting on the bishop. Elder Fong was beaming with joy. She was obviously very happy. She smiled sweetly. Don't worry. Before this, the bishop still looked down on Chuli. But now he won't. Once the bishop has mastered the enlightened master's martial arts, killing Chuli will be a piece of cake. Old and new grudges will be resolved together. Then I'll wish the bishop great success in the divine technique. Chuli fist saluted. Chapter 35-39. Song Jifan said, "Your mission is to stay outside and gather information. Don't miss out on any news about Chu Li. If you feel that you need to disturb me while I'm in isolation, send a message back." Chu Li nodded and smiled. "Nothing is more important than your cultivation of a divine technique." Song Jifan scoffed. "What if he becomes an enlightened master?" Chu Li smiled. "It can't be. It's very possible. He also knows how powerful I am. Once he hears that I'm in isolation, he might make this risky move. If he becomes an enlightened master, call me immediately," Song Jifan said. "Yes," Chu Li nodded. Elder Fong's charming gaze fell on Lu Jun. "Young Lu, you're still inexperienced. Listen to Bailey Na." "All right." Lu Jun was not convinced. He was an old man, but when he thought about Bailey Na's experience and foresight, he was indeed not as good as him. Moreover, he was indebted to Bailey Na for saving his life. He said slowly, "I will cooperate with Bailey Na to gather information." Chu Li smiled. "From what I see, we should gather our own information and summarize it for Elder Fong. Brother Lu and I have different sources of information, so we can cross-reference each other to reduce any errors." "That's great." Elder Fong nodded in satisfaction. Song Jifan waved his hand. "Listen to Elder Fong's instructions for the rest. If I'm out of isolation, I will definitely inform you." Chu Li and Lu Jun closed fists saluted and were about to leave. Elder Fong said, "I'll tell you directly. Young Lu, bring Bailey Na to Startling Goose Mountain. You guys can stay there. Pay attention to hiding your tracks, and don't get caught by Chu Li." Yes, the two closed fists saluted and left the basilica. "Is there anything else you want to bring, Elder Bailey?" Lu Jun asked. Chu Li shook his head. "Then let's go directly," Lu Jun said. The two fluttered down the floating mountain and talked as they walked. Startling Goose Mountain is one of our strongholds outside. "It's a very hidden place," Lu Jun said, "but we still have to be careful. It's only 500 miles away from Chongming Town." 500 miles, Chu Li frowned. "That's a little close." 150 miles was a long distance to a normal person. They would need to sit in a carriage for a long time, and they would need at least a month to cover that distance. But to martial artists, it was nothing. If they used lightness skills, they would not need to spend too much time. Lu Jun sighed. "It's too far away. How can we gather news about Chu Li?" Chu Li nodded slowly. "I don't want to stay there. Let's split up and find a place where only the two of us know where to meet up. Then, we'll just send the news back to the floating mountain." "You don't trust Jingyan Mountain?" Lu Jun frowned. Chu Li said, "It's not that I don't trust them, but I'm afraid that if I get caught, they'll ask me about the place and implicate too many people." "That's true." Lu Jun nodded. After walking for a day, the two of them decided on a rendezvous point. They would meet every 10 days, gather information, and then send it to the floating mountain. After that, the two of them went their separate ways. Chu Li suddenly returned to his own courtyard in the High Duke's public house. He sat by the stone table and pondered. Li Meng was chanting under the glorious tree. She turned a deaf ear to his appearance. Xue Ling had already appeared. She only served him tea and did not disturb him. Chu Li sighed and took a sip of tea. Plans could not keep up with changes. Who would have thought that he would be sent out, messing up his plans and destroying the idea of stirring up internal strife in the floating mountain? More importantly, Song Jifan was very smart. After he destroyed Chu Li's fantasy, he knew that there was no other way to get the Heaven Killer Sword. So, he took the safe path and suppressed the opposing voices. It was not possible to stir up internal strife, so he could only wait for an opportunity. Looking at Song Jifan's appearance, it was obvious that he was very confident that he could restrain the God Killer Sword. When that time came, it would be bad for Chu Li. Chu Li felt a sense of urgency. He had to cultivate quickly and become an enlightened master as soon as possible to increase his strength. It was a pity that he did not find the Heaven Killer Scripture. If he could master the Heaven Killer Scripture, it would not be difficult to deal with Song Jifan. He used the omniscient mirror to look for information about the Heaven Killer Scripture when Song Jifan was in trouble. Unfortunately, there was an invisible force in Song Jifan's mind that blocked the information about the Heaven Killer Scripture. He knew that it was not a good time to look for information or his life would be in danger. Moreover, he could not break through the barrier. He did not know if he could use the God Killer sword to bypass the barrier and peek at the Heaven Killer scripture. He took another sip of tea and suppressed all kinds of distracting thoughts. The only thing he could do now was to cultivate the tiger taming technique. The next moment, he put down the teacup and suddenly disappeared. He appeared in the backyard of King Anne's imperial residence. It was already a bright morning. Shao Qi was reading in the backyard, while Shao Shi was practicing her swordsmanship. The backyard was bathed in the bright sunshine, calm and peaceful. When she saw him, Shao Qi put down her book and smiled. Shao Shi glared at him and continued to practice her swordsmanship, ignoring him. Chu Li greeted her and put his arm around Shao Qi's waist to return to his courtyard. Shao Qi blushed and shook her head, but she did not reject him. The two quickly went to the bedroom and got on the bed. Chu Li pressed his body down and was about to enter the alley when he suddenly stopped. "What's wrong?" Shao Qi was lying on her back with her eyes closed. Her hair was like dark clouds, and her face was blushing. She was so beautiful that she opened her watery eyes and looked at Chu Li in confusion. Chu Li smiled bitterly and shook his head. "It's bitter." Shao Qi was even more confused. Chu Li sighed. "Looks like I'm going to spoil the fun today." "What's wrong?" Shao Qi stretched out her snow-white arm and placed it on his shoulder. Chu Li turned over and said, "There's a ball of vermilion bird's vitality in my body that I can't get rid of." There was always a vermilion bird's flame burning in his body. However, with the indestructible body of Diamond, it could not be extinguished. It seemed endless and could burn for a year, 10 years, or even 100 years. Once he merged with Shao Qi, this ball of flame would enter Shao Qi's body. Shao Qi had cultivated the regal sword scripture, but her body was not strong enough to withstand the vermilion bird's flame. If the two of them were to cooperate, it would be harming her, so he could only forcefully stop it. After he explained the situation, Shao Qi pursed her lips and smiled. "It's nothing. Is this vitality okay?" Chu Li shook his head. "It's not a big deal for now. It might be a blessing in disguise, but there's nothing I can do now. I can only endure it. It's good that it's a blessing in disguise." Shao Qi smiled. "Oh right, the situation in Fairy's capital has changed again." Chu Li looked at her curiously. Shao Qi flicked her hair and revealed her beautiful and slender neck. "The crown prince is strong again." Chu Li raised his eyebrows and nodded thoughtfully. It seemed that not only the enlightened master's power had increased, but the crown prince's too. Shao Qi said, "The Secret Guardians Hall has appointed a new commander." "Which one?" Chu Li asked. "Meng Xiaoqi." Shao Qi shook her head. "He seems to be someone who suddenly jumped out of a rock. I've never heard of him, and he's not famous at all, but he suddenly became the commander of the Secret Guardians." Chu Li frowned and pondered. Is he the Emperor's man or the Crown Prince's man? Chapter 3540. Chu Li nodded thoughtfully. He must have a powerful background if he's so mysterious. I don't think he's someone newly recruited by the Crown Prince. I think we should ask Lady Lu. Shao Qi smiled faintly. Chu Li smiled and pulled her into his arms. He laid on the bed and sighed. This Commander Meng is a newbie. Is he trying to burn our heads? Yes. Shao Qi nodded. 2 days ago, he brought the Secret Guardians to search King Anne's imperial residence. He said it was to wipe out the disciples of the Holy Church of Light. Chu Li's expression changed. Shao Qi glanced at him and said, I heard that you're friends with the saint of the Holy Church of Light. That's why we had to be careful. He turned the imperial residence upside down and almost angered second eldest sister. Chu Li's expression darkened. Looks like he's using me to establish his authority. He was now famous. Whether it was within the Ji dynasty or the entire world, he was a well-known figure. Commander Meng's decision to make an example of him as soon as he was promoted showed his strength and determination. It even carried a hint of provocation. It seemed like he had something to rely on. That was why he did not dare to fight him. Shao Qi frowned. Of course, but you know not to be impulsive. Maybe he predicted that you would come to him and gave you another surprise. Although Chu Li was strong, he was not invincible. Even if he was invincible, he still had to be careful of conspiracies. It was easy to dodge a spear in the open, but difficult to guard against an arrow in the dark. Even the most powerful master could fail miserably. Chu Li slowly nodded. Yes, I have to find out. I really have to look for Lu Yurong. Xiao Qi nodded. I'm not being sarcastic this time. It's best to ask Lu Yurong. Chu Li smiled. This Meng Xiaoqi, I'm really curious about what he's capable of. What's his background? He was not in a hurry to take revenge. He wanted to find out more about his background first. A little more time was not a problem. The older one was, the more timid they would be. He was not arrogant enough to push through all obstacles. As his martial arts became stronger, he became more cautious. Go. Xiao Qi smiled and pushed him. Chu Li said, a little more time is fine. Let's talk. A little more time is fine too. Xiao Qi said, it's better to ask him as soon as possible. I've been feeling uneasy, and I haven't seen second eldest sister holding her breath. She's just worried that you'll be impulsive, so she didn't say anything. She knew Chu Li well. Although he was young, he was cautious and steady. He would not act recklessly and impulsively just because he was angered. Instead, he would be even more cautious. Chu Li got up, put on his clothes, and left. He appeared in a delicate and elegant courtyard in the Ren public house. It was already noon. Lu Yurong was sitting in the pavilion in the courtyard, eating alone. She seemed to be deep in thought. Suddenly, she felt Chu Li's presence and looked up. Chu Li gave a fist salute. Lu Yurong shook her head and smiled. You don't visit me for no reason. Chu Li could not help but laugh. Yes. Are you here to inquire about Meng Xiaoqi? Lu Yurong was dressed in a snow-white gown. Her skin was like jade, and her whole body was surrounded by a faint aura of immortality. Even when she was eating, she still looked like a fairy who did not eat the food of the mortal world. Chu Li sat opposite her. Lu Yurong raised her voice. Xiaoyu. Yes, Mississippi, a delicate and pretty maid fluttered over and offered a bowl and chopsticks. Then, another maid brought a jade cup and a jade pot. Lu Yurong personally poured a cup of wine for him. She shook her head and sighed. This Meng Xiaoqi, I am also very curious about who he is. Chu Li smiled. Don't tell me he jumped out from a crack in a rock. It does look like it came out from a crack in a rock. Lu Yurong nodded lightly. When I was in the Crown Prince's residence, there was no such person. Based on my investigation, this person also appeared out of thin air. Chu Li said, if that's the case, how could he gain the trust of the Crown Prince and the Emperor to take over the secret Guardian's Hall? Exactly. Lu Yurong nodded. Unfortunately, I can't go to the Crown Prince's residence to personally meet this person. But this person is very mysterious, and his methods are ruthless. His martial arts is very high. He is not easy to deal with. Chu Li frowned. Is he hostile towards me? Or is he using me to establish his authority? If he wants to use me to establish his authority, his ambition is not small. Looks like he's using you to establish his authority. Lu Yurong said, if he is hostile, he would not just search the imperial residence and do nothing else. Chu Li slowly nodded. Lu Yurong clapped her hands. The maid called Xiaoyu left gracefully. After a while, she came back with a stack of files. She placed them on the stone table, taking up most of the table. Lu Yurong pointed at the files. Chu Li picked one up and flipped through it. It was all the information about Meng Xiaoqi. Who he talked to, what he said, his daily routine, and a clear portrait. Chu Li looked at the portrait. The portrait was of a young man. He had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes. His nose was like a hanging gull. His lips were thin, and there was a hint of gloominess in his handsome face. One look, and you could tell that he was not an easy person to deal with. Chu Li sighed. He's so young. Could he be of royal blood? It's highly possible. Lu Yurong nodded. I think so too, but there's no way to verify it. If he's from the royal family, he must be very secretive. Outsiders won't be able to find out. Chu Li nodded. What level is his cultivation level? I'm afraid he might not be weaker than me. Lu Yurong frowned. She could not understand it. It was a coincidence that she managed to cultivate to this level. It was a miracle that was hard to replicate. It seemed like she was luckier than Chu Li, But there was another young man who was just as lucky. Chu Li said, "I'd like to meet him. Most people don't know about your cultivation level." Lu Yurong smiled. "Except for a few enlightened masters. The enlightened masters today are stronger than before, so they might not be afraid of you anymore." Chu Li nodded. This was also the source of Meng Xiaoqi's stubbornness. Lung Wufeng must have tacitly agreed to it. He felt that he had Meng Xiaoqi in his grasp, so he no longer had any scruples. If Lung Wufeng did not want to offend him, Meng Xiaoqi would not use him to establish his dominance. Lu Yurong said, "How about this? I'll test his strength first. He won't dare to do anything to me." Chu Li shook his head and laughed. "Forget it, I'll do it myself. It's time to give the emperor a warning. He'll become arrogant once he's proud. The Lung family is like that. He can't be too proud, or he'll become a different person." Lu Yurong scoffed. It was the same for the crown prince and the emperor. Like father, like son. Chu Li smiled and nodded. That might not be the case. He might teach me a lesson first. After drinking 2 cups of wine, he suddenly disappeared and reappeared in a restaurant in Fairy's capital. The omniscient mirror spread out and appeared in the secret guardian's hall. He saw a young man sitting in the basilica. It was the new commander, Meng Xiaoqi. He was thin and tall. Although he was slightly short, he gave off a strong sense of vigor. He seemed to have sensed something and suddenly looked in Chu Li's direction. It was as if he was looking at Chu Li through the omniscient mirror. Chu Li was startled. He squinted his eyes. Something was wrong. Chapter 35:41. He narrowed his eyes and thought about it. He was getting more and more curious about Meng Xiaoqi. Even if Meng Xiaoqi sensed something, it was only for a moment. Chu Li continued to observe him, but found that his body was covered in a layer of white light. He could not see anything. This situation could only mean that he was protected by treasure or had a profound cultivation level. The omniscient mirror could not make a conclusion no matter how much he looked at it. It seemed like he had to test it out himself. Meng Xiaoqi was going through the dossiers at a very fast speed. He looked through them one by one as if he was flipping through them casually, as if he did not put any effort into it. However, Chu Li understood that Meng Xiaoqi had a photographic memory just like him. As he observed Meng Xiaoqi with the omniscient mirror, a handsome young man walked towards him. It was Zhuo Feiyang. Zhuo Feiyang was dressed in a blue tunic. He looked handsome and handsome. He sat in front of Chu Li with a cold expression, attracting the attention of the people around him. Zhuo Feiyang looked straight ahead as he sat down. He glanced at Chu Li and closed fist saluted as if he was a stranger. Chu Li asked, "Who is Meng Xiaoqi?" "Meng Xiaoqi?" Zhuo Feiyang frowned and raised his hand. The waiter ran over eagerly. Zhuo Feiyang ordered a few dishes and a bottle of wine. "I really don't know this person's background," Zhuo Feiyang said. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. "Not from the Crown Prince's residence?" "He is from the Crown Prince's residence, but he wasn't a member of the Crown Prince's residence." Zhuo Feiyang shook his head. "I've never seen him before. He seemed to have popped out of nowhere. Maybe he was recruited from somewhere else." Chu Li raised his eyebrows. He saw a group of secret guardians leaving the secret guardians' hall in a hurry. They were as agile as horses. There were 10 of them in total. They moved quickly and did not say a word to each other. Chu Li knew that they were about to make a move when he saw their expressions. The person leading them was an old acquaintance of his. It was the centurion of Mei Yi Courtyard, Chen Donghai. Chen Donghai's face was taut and his expression was solemn. Between his brows, there was a sense of solemnity and awe-inspiring awe as he floated silently. The 9 people who followed closely behind him were all elders. Their cultivation levels were all grandmasters, and they were the elites of the Mei Yi Courtyard. Centurion, one of the elders, hesitated. "Are we really going to make a move? How can we defy the commander's orders?" Chen Donghai turned his head and glared at him. "If I can defy it, of course, I don't want to do it. I'm just afraid that we'll be unlucky." The old man's eyebrows were all white, and he was short. He squinted his eyes and said, "We were the ones who did it. Commander can push the blame all the way and say you don't know. Commander won't." Chen Donghai shook his head. The elder said, It looks like the commander isn't afraid of Centurion Chu. But what if Centurion Chu attacks? Commander, your martial arts are profound and unfathomable. You might not be inferior to Chu Li. Chen Donghai scoffed. The old man shook his head. Centurion, that Centurion Chu has killed a heavenly god before. We can't estimate the depth of his cultivation. Even if the commander can defeat him, can he protect us? What do you think? Chen Donghai scoffed. The old man looked around and said in a low voice, "Why don't we send someone to inform them in advance?" Chen Donghai's expression darkened as he glared at him coldly. The elder hurriedly said, "Centurion, don't tell me that you think I'm one of Chu Li's men. That sounds like a good idea." Chen Donghai scoffed. The elder hurriedly waved his hand and said, "If I'm really one of Chu Li's men, I won't say anything. I'm doing this for the sake of us brothers. Centurion, the commander has just taken office, so he needs to consolidate his power. Centurion, you have the highest authority and prestige. Arme E courtyard is the strongest. Don't talk nonsense." Chen Donghai hurriedly said. The elder shut his mouth. After a while, he sighed and said, "I'm just afraid that we'll be unjustly wronged and the commander will use someone else to get rid of us. That way, he'll make room for the commander's men." "Shut up! Shut up!" Chen Donghai lowered his voice and shouted angrily as he glared at him. The elder said no more and retreated back to the group. The other 9 elders stared at Chen Donghai with bright eyes. Chen Donghai sighed and said, "Don't seek death. Our new commander is so shrewd that he'll definitely be prepared for this. If you don't want to die, you'd better listen to his orders." Chapter 35-42. Chu Li sat in the restaurant and took a sip of wine. He had already read Chen Donghai's mind and knew what they were going to do. They were going to enter King An's imperial residence again to provoke them. They wanted to claim that King An's imperial residence was hiding people from the Holy Church of Light. They wanted to investigate the identities of all the imperial residences, scribes, and protectors. If there was anyone with an unclear identity or unknown background, they would capture them and bring them to the secret Guardian's Hall for investigation. They would rather capture the wrong person than let a disciple of the Holy Church of Light escape. If there was resistance, it meant that they were guilty and they must be captured. If they dared to resist, they would be killed. They were prepared for a big battle. Chu Li frowned and pondered. After some thought, he looked up and said, "I'll leave first. You stay here and don't do anything. Don't look for news about Meng Xiaoqi." "Okay." Zhuo Fei raised his chin. Chu Li Fist saluted to express his gratitude and left. The next moment, he suddenly disappeared and appeared in the backyard of King An's imperial residence. Xiao Shi and Xiao Qi were in the backyard. They were chatting and laughing in their white gowns. Xiao Shi was teasing Xiao Qi. When Chu Li appeared, Xiao Shi glanced at him. "You went to look for Lu Yurong?" Chu Li said, "Miss Lu doesn't know either." Meng Xiaoqi seemed to have popped out from a rock. No one knows his background, but he's trusted by the crown prince and the emperor. It's really strange. Xiao Shi frowned. "You're saying that he's a disciple of the imperial family and might have the blood of the Long clan?" Chu Li said, "Everything is still unclear. I'll investigate carefully." "Oh right, there's a group of people from the secret Guardian's Hall coming to search King An's imperial residence. They said that there's a disciple of the Holy Church of Light hiding in King An's imperial residence. They must find him no matter what." "Slander." Xiao Shi scoffed. "Meng Xiaoqi is too much. Is he forcing us to fight?" "Obviously." Chu Li smiled. "He's forcing me to come out, right? Are you going to fight?" Xiao Shi turned to look at him. Chu Li slowly nodded. "I have no choice but to do so. Otherwise, how would we be able to stand up for King An's imperial residence? Isn't this exactly what he wants?" Xiao Shi frowned and said, "If it really doesn't work, I'll go talk to the Empress. They can't bully us like this, can they?" Chu Li said, "The Empress might not want to see you this time." Xiao Qi and Xiao Shi were worried. Chu Li smiled. "It's a small matter, don't worry." "All right." Xiao Shi scoffed and said, "I keep feeling that the Emperor's expression is different. His original arrogance has returned. Looks like he thinks he can take care of you. You better be careful. Chuli nodded and walked out. He ordered someone to open the main door and walked out slowly. He stood on the steps and sized up Chun Donghai's group of 10 who were rushing over from the corner of the street. Chuli smiled at Chun Donghai. Centurion Chun, it's been a while. How have you been? So it's Head Chief Chu, long time no see. Chun Donghai reluctantly cupped his fists. His heart trembled as he knew that he was doomed this time. It was impossible for him to complete the mission, and he could only return in low spirits. Chuli smiled and said, May I know why the secret guardians are here? Are they searching for the disciples of the Holy Church of Light? Exactly. Chun Donghai braced himself and said, We've received orders from the commander to come to King An's imperial residence to search for the disciples of the Holy Church of Light. Someone reported that there are disciples of the Holy Church of Light hiding in your imperial residence. Chuli said, Didn't we search them the last time? The last time was just a general search to go through the motions. It's different this time. Chun Donghai said in a low voice, We need to thoroughly investigate everyone. If they're of unknown origin, we must arrest them. Chuli shook his head. There are no disciples of the Holy Church of Light in our residence. Chun Donghai shook his head and said, Head Chief Chu, whether there are or not, we'll only know after we investigate. Chuli smiled. The imperial residence is not a place where secret guardians like you can enter. Head Chief, you're wrong. Chun Donghai braced himself and said, We secret guardians have the right to investigate any residence, even King An's imperial residence. Those who stop us will be killed without mercy. Chuli could not help but laugh. Oh, killed without mercy? That's right, Chun Donghai said in a low voice. He cried in his heart, Don't be too forceful. Don't be too forceful. Just deceive them. Don't be too serious. The more he cried, the more Chuli did not want to do as he wished. He said slowly, I'd like to stop you. Let's see how the secret Guardians Hall is going to kill without mercy. It's Commander Meng's first time here, but he wants to start a fire. How interesting. Chuli, are you really going to stop us from searching? Chun Donghai scoffed. Chuli said, Yes, you can do whatever you need to do. If that's the case, we can only offend you. Chun Donghai said in a low voice. Chuli glanced at the crowd, and his gaze fell on an elder in the crowd. He smiled faintly. You're not an elder from the secret Guardians Hall, are you? You knew, right? The elder took a step forward and said, I'm Hu Chong. Greetings, Head Chief. Chuli smiled and said, It's such a great honor to have such a hidden master come to my residence. I don't deserve it. Hu Chong said, How would I dare to say that I'm hidden in front of you, Head Chief? Chuli laughed out loud. All right, let's not beat around the bush. I'm sure Commander Meng already knew that I'd make a move since you're here. He must have a backup plan, right? Why don't we come together? His gaze fell on the corner of the street. Meng Xiaoqi appeared from the corner amidst a hearty laughter. 4 old men followed beside him. Their eyes were clear and bright, and their bodies were as light as a feather. It seemed as if they would float up at any time. I've long heard of your great name, Head Chief. Meng Xiaoqi smiled. Now that I've seen you today, you live up to your reputation. This is the Emperor's gold plate. He reached into his inner pocket and took out a gold plate. The word amnesty was reflected in the sunlight. It looked like a dragon, and a phoenix was dancing as if it was about to jump out of the gold plate. It was a shocking sight. Chuli frowned as he looked at the gold plate. He asked, This is the Emperor's token? Meng Xiaoqi kept the gold plate and shook his head. Let's not talk about whether it's real or fake. Head Chief, are you going to hold onto the gold plate and prevent us from entering the residence to search? If there's really a gold plate, I really can't stop you. Chuli shook his head and extended his hand. I want to test the gold plate. Please. Meng Xiaoqi smiled. There's the Emperor's enlightened master's inner energy on it. You'll know whether it's real or fake at a glance. Chuli took the gold plate. A strange inner energy immediately penetrated his body like solid mercury. It was all-pervasive and unstoppable. It instantly penetrated his internal organs, as if it was going to freeze him. Chuli looked up at Meng Xiaoqi. Meng Xiaoqi was smiling proudly. It was obvious that he had plotted against Chu Li. "Do you have any objections, head chief?" Meng Xiaoqi asked with a smile. Chu Li sighed slowly. "The enlightened master's inner energy can't resist it. As a grandmaster, I can't either. Commander Meng's move is really brilliant. I heard that you've killed an enlightened master before. I'm sure you have a way to resist it." Meng Xiaoqi chuckled. "I'd also like to see your power." Chen Donghai and the others stared at Chu Li with bright eyes. They could tell that Chu Li must have fallen into the commander's trap. From the looks of it, the commander was better and could plot against Chu Li. Back then, Chu Li had planned everything. He only plotted against others and had never been plotted against by others. Chapter 35:43. To think that Centurion Chu would have such a day. His voice was so soft that it was almost inaudible, but everyone around him was a grandmaster with a profound cultivation level, so they heard him clearly. Chu Li glanced at the old man with a smile and sighed. "Old man, don't tell me that I'm so unpopular with everyone that they want to see me suffer." Then, the old man was slightly embarrassed and closed fist saluted without saying a word. When Chu Li was in the Secret Guardians Hall, he was gentle and warm to everyone. There was nothing much to say, and he almost never offended anyone. The only person he offended was Chen Donghai, and he had nothing to do with the other Secret Guardians. Nonetheless, his rise to fame still greatly stimulated the Secret Guardians in the Secret Guardians Hall, and they lamented that they had lived in vain. Meng Xiaoqi's face gradually darkened when he saw Chu Li chatting and laughing without changing his expression. Could it be that a grandmaster could really defeat an enlightened master? A grandmaster could only kill an enlightened master by luck, or when an enlightened master was at his weakest, or by using other tricks. In short, a grandmaster facing an enlightened master was like seawater facing a reef. No matter how profound one's cultivation level was, one could not withstand an enlightened master's inner energy. This was common sense, a rule that everyone knew and could not violate. Could Chu Li have broken this rule? Chu Li looked up at Meng Xiaoqi and carefully sized him up. Even though Meng Xiaoqi was right in front of him, he still felt that Meng Xiaoqi was covered by a layer of white veil. It was hazy, and he could not see clearly. It gave him a strange feeling, and he wanted to lift the white veil to see clearly. Meng Xiaoqi frowned and asked, "Head Chief, did you find out if it's real or not?" Chu Li shook his head. "Unfortunately, this gold plate is fake. The Emperor's enlightened master's inner energy shouldn't be so weak." As he spoke, he gently squeezed it. Instantly, a fingerprint appeared on the gold plate as if it was branded on it. The word pardon turned into the word qi. Meng Xiaoqi's eyes narrowed, and he stared at the fingerprint. As shrewd as he was, his expression could not help but change. This was a badge that belonged to an enlightened master. Not only did it contain the enlightened master's inner energy, but it also contained a trace of the enlightened master's field and the pressure of an enlightened master. It could completely suppress a grandmaster. Lung Wufeng had especially given him this badge to use against Chu Li, but he did not expect Chu Li to break the badge so easily. This was no different from fighting Lung Wufeng face to face. Once the two of them fought, Chu Li could easily suppress Lung Wufeng, which was beyond his imagination. Is there such a strange person in this world? He was also sizing Chu Li up. The two of them looked at each other, and the atmosphere froze. After a while, Chu Li broke the silence and said with a smile, "The gold plate is fake. Commander Meng, are you still going to force your way into my residence?" "Of course," Meng Xiaoqi said solemnly. At this point, he had no choice but to act. Chu Li shook his head and could not help but laugh. "I think Commander Meng should think about it more, lest you humiliate yourself. The Secret Guardians Hall will never retreat. Even if we're no match for them, we won't retreat at the last minute." Meng Xiaoqi scoffed. Chu Li smiled. "That's not what the Secret Guardians Hall should be doing. The key to being a Secret Guardian isn't to kill, but to explore. Commander Meng, aren't you turning the Secret Guardians Hall into the protectors of the Imperial House?" Meng Xiaoqi's expression was solemn. That's the secret guardian's hall of the past. From today onwards, the secret guardian's hall will be different. Chu Li said, "You want to overthrow the tradition of the secret guardian's hall as soon as you take office. Commander Meng, you're really swift and decisive. I'm impressed." He smiled and closed fist saluted. His sarcasm was obvious. Meng Xiaoqi sneered. "Since the head chief insists on standing in the way of the secret guardian's hall, then we can only offend you. All secret guardians, listen up. Immediately enter King An's imperial residence and search for the disciples of the Holy Church of Light. If you encounter any resistance, kill without mercy." "Yes." Everyone responded loudly. Chu Li squinted his eyes and chuckled. "Kill without mercy?" Meng Xiaoqi said, "Head chief, you're forcing me to do this." Chu Li said, "That depends on everyone's capabilities." Chen Donghai glanced at Meng Xiaoqi and then at Chu Li. Meng Xiaoqi's expression was gloomy. He slowly glanced at the secret guardians and secretly sighed at the depth of Chu Li's power that made them so afraid. "I'd like to experience the head chief's great skills." He took a step forward and punched lightly. Chu Li took a step diagonally to avoid it. At the same time, he formed a seal with his hands and shouted, "Duo." The secret guardians were ready to make a move. They wanted to enter King An's imperial residence while the commander was holding Chu Li back. As long as they entered, they would not be disobeying orders. At most, they would not kill anyone. As for listening to the commander's words and killing without mercy, they would be crazy. The imperial residence was not just any other place. It was the emperor's descendant. How could it be blasphemed? If they hurt the young ladies in the residence, it would be a great sin. If that happened, the commander might not be able to bear the consequences, and they would be the unlucky ones. Suddenly, they heard the sound of thunder. Their vision darkened and darkness swallowed them. They fell limply to the ground and fainted. Chu Li scanned his surroundings. Everyone had collapsed, and Chen Donghai was no exception. Even the surname with the highest cultivation level, the elder had also fainted. He nodded in satisfaction. The power of the lion's roar had greatly increased after fusing with the god-killing needle. Meng Xiaoqi's expression was gloomy. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he shouted, "Chu Li." Chu Li raised his head and glanced at him. Suddenly, the scene in front of him shook violently as if he had fallen into a formation. Then, he realized that Meng Xiaoqi's appearance had changed drastically. His entire body seemed to be lighter, and his body was emitting a hazy white light, like white jade under the moonlight. An oppressive force slowly emerged and stopped halfway. The white light on Meng Xiaoqi's body slowly converged and returned to his body to protect him. However, he stared at Chu Li with a gloomy face. "What a great head chief. You really live up to your reputation." Chu Li smiled. "Likewise. Who exactly is Commander Meng? I don't need to trouble you to ask." "Farewell." He scoffed. "Why aren't you getting up? Are you going to embarrass yourself here?" The people who were lying on the ground pretending to be dead had no choice but to get up. Those who were thick-skinned pretended to be nonchalant, while those who were thin-skinned pretended to be embarrassed. They all retreated from King An's imperial residence. Chu Li stood with his hands behind his back, his white robe fluttering. The protectors standing behind the gate looked at him and felt that he was tall and majestic like a towering mountain guarding the imperial residence. With the head chief around, no one could break into the imperial residence. As he watched Meng Xiaoqi's back disappear, Chu Li was deep in thought. The omniscient mirror had been observing him, thinking about the strange situation he was in earlier. Meng Xiaoqi seemed to be sealing his true cultivation level. He originally wanted to undo it, but gave up. It seemed like he had some misgivings, or it was not the right time yet. Perhaps he wanted to settle the score with him in private? However, in this case, Commander Meng's reputation was completely lost. The prestige he established in King An's imperial residence was also gone. Instead, it helped his reputation. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. The enlightened master's power was indeed fierce and overbearing. If it was in the past, he would not be able to handle a six-fold enlightened master's power. Not only was it profound, but it was also pure. He was lucky to be able to break it easily. It was really hard to predict whether it was a blessing or a disaster. Chapter 35:44. P.S. The 52nd Alliance Leader has been born. Alliance Leader 1? Chuli returned to the Imperial residence with a solemn expression and went to the backyard. Other than Xiao Qi and Xiao Shi, the other two princesses, Lung Ying and Lung Qing, also came over. When they saw Chuli return, they all smiled sweetly. With Chuli, the head chief, around, King An's imperial residence was like having a pillar that could support the heavens. They could be at ease. They quickly bid farewell and left Chuli alone with Xiao Shi and Xiao Qi. "What's wrong? Aren't you happy that he ran away?" Xiao Shi asked with a smile. She felt relieved. That Meng Xiaoqi was such a B** starred. He used King An's imperial residence to establish his authority as soon as he took office. Just like the new commander, he knew about Chu Li's reputation, but still did so. It was obvious that he had his sights set on Chu Li. This time, he went out personally to defeat Chu Li to establish his authority and reputation. Unfortunately, he did not succeed and was easily defeated by Chu Li. It was only one move. She felt relieved when she thought about his disheveled face. Xiao Qi frowned. "Is there any more trouble?" Chu Li nodded slowly. "A lot." He took out the gold plate and handed it to her. Xiao Shi took it and looked at it carefully. She looked up at him. "I think this is real, right?" Chu Li nodded. "It's real. Why is the Emperor's gold plate with him?" Xiao Shi was stunned. Her beautiful face changed and she scoffed. "The Emperor gave it to him, didn't he? What is the Emperor trying to do?" Xiao Qi frowned and said, "Could it be the Emperor's idea? Why would it make things difficult for King An's imperial residence? After all, it's his son's widow." She found it unbelievable. Helping someone to bully the orphan and widow left behind by his son was not something a human could do. It was beyond imagination. Xiao Shi scoffed. "He wants to go against Chu Li, right? He's ruthless." Chu Li nodded. It was obvious that Lung Wufeng's target was him. He wanted to test his limits. If he could not fight against the enlightened master's power on the gold plate, he would not be able to stop Meng Xiaoqi. Not only would he establish his authority for the Secret Guardian's Hall, but he would also be defeated. In that case, the Ji dynasty's Lung family would still be the strongest, and no one could stop them. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. As an emperor, there was nothing wrong with what he did. He first considered his own interests and ignored his feelings. This was the nature of an emperor. Even if he had some human feelings in the beginning, it would fade after a long time as an emperor. In the end, he would become a cold-blooded person who only cared about the Lung family. "What do you want?" Xiao Shi scoffed. Chu Li smiled. "I want to have a good chat with the emperor. It's time to talk to him." Xiao Shi sneered. She understood what Chu Li meant. He wanted to embarrass Lung Wufeng so that he would know that Lord Ma had 3 eyes and could not be provoked. Xiao Qi said, "This Meng Xiaoqi is a little strange." She tried to sense Meng Xiaoqi from within the mansion. With her current cultivation level, she could even escape unscathed from a heavenly god expert. However, she could not sense Meng Xiaoqi at all, as if he did not exist at all. She could sense this from Chu Li. It was as if he had become one with the void, and it was difficult to tell them apart, so she could not sense him. Chu Li's cultivation level could overpower an enlightened master, but Meng Xiaoqi should not have such a profound cultivation level. How could he do this? It was obvious that this person was strange and should not be underestimated even if she had defeated him this time. Chu Li nodded. "It's very strange. It's strange indeed." Xiao Shi nodded. "I can't divine him with the heavenly heart technique at all. It's like he's an enlightened master." She was very compatible with the heavenly heart technique, so her cultivation level improved by leaps and bounds. Now, her cultivation level was not inferior to Chu Li's, and her divination was quite accurate too. However, she could not divine Meng Xiaoqi. Chu Li smiled. "It's fine. I'll be able to tell if he's a human or a ghost. I'll go to the Imperial House and have a chat with the Emperor." "Let's go. Let's go." Xiao Shi was beaming with joy. "Why don't we go with you?" Chu Li shook his head. "Forget it. I don't want to embarrass the emperor. That's true. We don't have to save him face anyway. Co sure scoffed. Chuli nodded and waved his hand. Then he disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in a back garden of the Forbidden Palace. An old man in a yellow robe was feeding the fishes in the winding corridor above the lake. The koi fishes in the clear lake below were fighting for the food, and the red color on their faces was similar to that of fresh blood. Chuli gave a fist salute and smiled. "You're in a good mood, Your Majesty." Lung Wufeng turned to look at him and smiled faintly. Then he threw all the fish food into the lake. When the fish food was scattered all over the lake, the surface of the lake seemed to be boiling as all the koi fishes came out to fight for the food. Chuli looked at the koi fishes and smiled. As expected of the fish from the imperial house, they're much more beautiful than the ones outside. Chuli, you're a rare guest. Why are you looking for me? Lung Wufeng stared at him. He did not recognize Chu Li as king and's murderer and always thought that it was Du Feng. Now that Du Feng had not shown up for a long time, Lung Wufeng thought that Du Feng must have been killed to get rid of a knot in his heart. Chu Li said, "Your Majesty, you don't have to play dumb." Lung Wufeng smiled and pointed at the gazebo opposite him. Then he slowly walked into the gazebo. At that moment, he did not look like he knew martial arts at all. He looked like an ordinary elder who did not know martial arts. He looked dignified and calm. After he sat down, he looked at Chu Li, who was sitting opposite him. "Aren't you afraid that I'll make you stay?" Chu Li smiled. "Why should I stay? Am I Your Majesty's enemy that you want to fight to the death?" "That's not it." Lung Wufeng shook his head. "Chu Li, it's good for the Ji dynasty that you're here. It's a deterrent to the surrounding countries. I should thank you for that." Chu Li could not help but laugh. "Your Majesty, you haven't finished, have you?" "Of course." Lung Wufeng said. "Your existence is also a problem. The crown prince can't be at ease because he's worried that you'll interfere with the fight for the throne. Chu Li, since you're here, tell me, will you interfere with the fight for the throne?" Chu Li said, "Your Majesty, you're far-sighted. It's not too far away. I'll ascend to heaven in a few years," Lung Wufeng said. Chu Li smiled. "In my opinion, after I ascend to heaven, the crown prince will shoulder the heavy responsibility of the Ji dynasty. Will he be able to gain a foothold among the enlightened masters and not be bullied by the Fu dynasty? It'll be difficult." Lung Wufeng shook his head and smiled. "But it'll be different with Chu Li's help." Chu Li laughed out loud and shook his head. "Your Majesty, you don't care about relationships, but you want someone else to help you? Isn't this a big joke? Why should I help His Highness the Crown Prince?" "Your Majesty, please find a reason for me," Lung Wufeng said. "This is your country after all." Chu Li asked, "So what?" Lung Wufeng scoffed. "Are you going to watch your country be bullied by other countries?" Chu Li replied, "Only His Highness the Crown Prince is being bullied." Lung Wufeng frowned. "If that's the case, you want your grandson to inherit the throne?" Chu Li smiled and shook his head. "It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who inherits the throne since they're all from the Lung family." Lung Wufeng pondered for a while before he sighed. "I won't allow anyone else to decide who's going to inherit the throne." Chu Li smiled. "Everything goes according to Your Majesty's wishes. I'm here today to talk about this gold medallion. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.